So it is very important that again we read the advertisement of UPSC, where again UPSC has very clearly stated what is the purpose of this examination. Every answer is key. Everything which UPSC has crafted very beautifully in the syllabus of examination is why it is something which you are going to do once you get into administration. That's why every subject, everything which is being done here or which we are going to read here, we are not just going to read in terms of information and memory, we are going to see in terms of understanding analytical skills. देखो ये भी understand करना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि कोई भी scheme, कोई भी report, कोई भी index हम पढ़ते हैं, whenever reading coming across those reports, indices, events, we need to understand where I can use those reports, indices in my answer writing, how a question could be framed in prelims from that particular report indices. That is my understanding of reading the respective current events. If you see, 80% of the questions are directly from the keywords of the question only. So again, if you have understood the syllabus, if you have read things around that syllabus subtopic, you will be in a position to answer any questions which are there. Some new thing in news, they ask the context. आपको आप उसके लिए आप क्रिप्टो करेंसी पढ़ना जरूरी नहीं है, आपको ब्लॉकचेन जानना जरूरी नहीं है. You need to have a basic understanding. How will you maintain your work-life balance? But again, you will be in a position of maybe serving your district. Maybe there is no time limit. है ना? तो ये आपको questions ऐसे basic dilemma वाले पूछेंगे. And that to check your personality, that how you are reacting to those. You write a very plain answer, and you write an answer where again you have current knowledge also. है ना? That would of course give you more marks. A very warm welcome to all of you for the session. We have gathered here today for a session on not strategy. Then, okay, let's again first of all get to know what exactly is the session all about. क्या है session आज का? We are going to discuss what? Yes, and which is a very important component for the preparation of this examination. So we will be starting with, and again what I have one thing in mind ki once we are done this with session, all of you must have a clarity regarding why UPSC has given us this particular set of syllabus. Why is it important for us to become civil servants, to become administrators, to read these subjects or these topics which have been mentioned by UPSC, and how exactly we are going to go with the syllabus of examination across all the 3 stages of examination, that is prelims, mains, and your personality test, right? That's what the UPSC talks about. So very quickly, again, the pattern and stage of examination, but before preparing for this particular set of examination, one thing it is very, very, very important for all of you to do, that is, how many of you have read the advertisement of UPSC at least once? The advertisement of UPSC, has anyone read in the classroom or the online students as well? And why is it important? And that's the major challenge which all of us who start to prepare for the examinations have this notion that we are going to read class 6 to class 12 NCRTs. That's the very basic thing which comes to our mind whenever we get a thought of preparing for the examination, because that's the common notion moving around, right? And then maybe if we are done with, let's say, class 6 to class 12 NCRTs, then again we start with some more higher books. For example, for Polity, maybe we go for Lakshmikant and all of this, right? But before that, all of you must have played a game, any game by any chance, cricket, football, anything. So each game is played by a set of rules, right? And we all get to know, and we all should know how exactly what are the rules, what may lead to maybe disqualification of me in the game, right? What would make me excel in the game, right? And that is why for this examination also, as we are going to play a game of clearing this examination, so it is very important that again we read the advertisement of UPSC, where again UPSC has very clearly stated what is the purpose of this examination. Number 1, what all things are required for a candidate who is having or who has thought of maybe or going to have a career in civil services, what all things are required, right? And that's why it has crafted very beautifully the 3 stages of examination that has also a logic, right? Because as you know, this is the most longest examination happening in the country, right? Across at least minimum of 1 year, right? And preparation itself requires a minimum of 1.5 years or 2 years, maybe 1 year, right? But generally, examination cycle is of 1 year. And why UPSC has given us a 1 year cycle, right? What are the traits which it is looking from candidates when it comes to prelims examination, when it comes to mains examination, when it comes to, let's say, the personality test? It is very important, right? Then again, if you have an idea that what are the traits being checked in a candidate in terms of prelims, in terms of mains, in terms of interview, then you can prepare it accordingly, right? That's a very logic. So again, it's a request to all of you, please go home and after the session, and again, please read the advertisement of UPSC once, because you're going to devote maybe a couple of years from now in this preparation journey, right? So again, you get to know what exactly is the demand of examination, right? So if I ask someone, what is UPSC checking from candidates when it comes to prelims examination? What is being tested there? Elimination technique. That's what UPSC checks. Anything else? Yes, that is again, of course, but again, the idea that why do we have objective set of questions for clearing this examination? Huh? Again, yes. Why? What is it? Again, in prelims, how many papers do we have? 2 papers, each papers of how many marks? 200 marks each. Paper 1 will be of general studies, where again, we are going to read a variety of subjects, and whatever marks we will be getting in that particular paper will determine whether we are going to qualify for the next stage or not, given the fact that we need to at least score 33% marks in the second paper, that is civil service aptitude test, right? So again, here maybe not exactly a factual knowledge, but yes, more or less a factual set of knowledge, maybe your analytical skills, maybe your quick decision making skills, because at the time you need to understand, in a span of 2 hours, you're going to solve how many questions? 100 questions, right? In that process of maybe solving questions, whether you are not are you making that decision whether out of what choices I am going to select one? That again is a trait which is being checked at that particular stage, apart from your factual and analytical skills, right? And that's why this prelims has a different set of preparation strategy. Then when it comes to mains examination, what is being checked? Has anyone seen what exactly has UPSC specifically mentioned one paragraph in its advertisement, wherein it is telling what exactly it is looking for from candidates when it comes to mains examination? Can someone tell me? Understanding, yes. Understanding of what? Very good. That's what he has read. Okay, good. But again, generally, but yes, it is again presence of mind, what he applied over there, right? That is also a trait which is requires examination. But generally, yes, people do not exactly know what we read. A lot of things we read NCRTs, but we don't know what and why we are reading it, how it is supposed to be read, and how that reading will help me across the 3 stages of examination, right? And that's why maybe it is not just a check of your knowledge, it is your analysis of maybe what you have read that, right? Wherein you are not going to write answers, you're going to throw your opinions, right? As an administrator, because you are going to work with the government, right? So again, at this particular stage, which carries how many marks? By any chance, if anyone knows? Your mains examination carries how many marks? 1750 marks. And your personality test carries how many marks? 275 marks, right? That is also important to be known, right? And based on your mains marks plus your interview marks, you will be getting a rank, and again, whatever rank and service you'll be getting in the final list, right? So can someone tell me what is the percentage success factor in terms of weightage of mains examination in your successfully getting maybe a rank in the list? Very good, 83%, right? And that is why it is not just going to be you writing a plain answers. It is where your analytical skills are being checked upon. What kind of viewpoints do you have? by reading those viewpoints through your answers, the examiner will give you a marks, right? And then again, at this particular stage, it is being checked whether you are analytically enough, or maybe in terms of what is your understanding, how you interpret things. Is it required, or is it requisite at this particular stage, where again you are writing down the answers, for you getting a career in civil services or not? That is being checked here, right? That is what broadly it talks about. And the last stage, that is your personality test. What is being checked here? किसने देखा? Yeah, personality check तो हो रही है, right? But again, has anyone seen what UPSC wants? This is what they have written very clearly, that the candidate will be interviewed by a board who will have before them a record of the candidate's career, right? Maybe all of you fill up DAF forms, detailed application forms, where again you are going to mention all of the things. The candidate will be asked questions on matters of general interest. The object of interview or personality test is to assess personal suitability of a candidate for what? Whether you are fit to become a civil servant or not, whether you are fit to have a career in public services by a board of competent and biased observers. The interview or personality test is not only intellectual qualities, but also social traits and interest in current affairs, right? Some of the qualities, kya qualities check ho rahi hai yahan par? In terms of your mental alertness, in terms of critical powers of assimilation, in terms of your clear and logical exposition, right? Balance of judgment, variety and depth of interest, ability of social cohesion, leadership, intellectual and moral integrity, right? So once we read all of these heavy words, right, we do not have a clarity at what exactly it is being told, right? And how we are going to showcase all of these things in the span of, let's say, 30-40 minutes, where again that's the maximum time where again you will be interacting with the board of members, right, at your personality test, right? So, and that is why it is one important fact that again, whenever you are going to start preparing for the examination, you're preparing not only for one stage, simultaneously preparing for all the 3 stages. And that's why I have made a strategy here, that how we are going to see syllabus. We are not just going to see syllabus in its own term, we are going to interlink that particular part of syllabus with all the 4 papers. We are going to interlink how maybe questions on prelims could be framed from that particular topic, how should we read current affairs from that particular topic, and lastly, how we should integrate that topic in terms of our interview preparation, in terms of our essay preparation, a lot of things. That's how we are going to proceed with, right? And then maybe the technique of interview is not that of a strict cross-questioning, but again of natural thought-directed purposeful conversation, which is intended to reveal the mental qualities of a candidate, right? And they have specifically told that your knowledge is tested. If you have qualified prelims out of those 6-7 lakhs people, you have qualified mains out of those 14,000 people who are going to write mains examination, and then you have reached at this particular stage. So your knowledge is already tested. It is now a test of a personality, and that's why they have been asking. Interview personality test is not intended to test either of the specialized or general knowledge of candidates, which has already been tested through written papers. Candidates are expected to have taken an intelligent interest not only in the subject of academic study, but also in events which is happening around them, both within and outside the country, right? As well as modern events of thoughts and in new discoveries which should rouse the curiosity of a well-educated youth. यहाँ आती थोड़ी सी open-ended thing in the syllabus, right? Till mains, we have a very defined thing. But in when the last line of this particular syllabus of interview talks about discoveries which should rouse the curiosity of a well-educated youth. But what exactly is being told here, right? And that is how every answer to what any vague terms in the advertisement of UPSC is going to be seen through the syllabus of your mains examination, right? So before that, it is very, let's say, prelims. This is the syllabus of prelims examination, right? All of you must have seen this. The very first line, current events of national and international importance. That now, can someone tell me what exactly to be written in this? Current events of national and international importance. ये syllabus है, right? क्या पढ़ना है इसमें? Current affairs. And what should be my boundary of reading current affairs? newspaper, very good, very objectively is answering, right? And again, very logically, if you see national and international importance topics, right? But again, in newspapers, a lot of things come up, right? Starting from a big fat Ambani wedding, which happened at national level as well as at international level, right? Is it important for me to be read? No. Why? And how do I come to a conclusion that this is something which is not required for me to be read? Very good. And your syllabus for your current affairs has to be determined what is the syllabus of all the 4 GS papers of your examination, right? That is, any event happening around those syllabus or those part of syllabus which have been mentioned by UPSC, that is my boundary of reading current affairs also, right? Everything cannot be read and everything is not supposed to be read also. So you need to understand that when I am reading newspapers, I should have a clarity first regarding what is the syllabus of the examination, right? Many toppers across the years have told that you have to by heart the syllabus. You have to maybe keep syllabus handy with you all the time, right? And that's for the utility. Yes, it is very important, not just by heart it by very literal sense. By heart means once you paste the syllabus in front of your study tables, whenever you read any topic, please start questioning you that which part of syllabus this current event or this static part of syllabus which I'm reading is aligning with, right? If you have that clarity, it will make more sense that how and why I am progressing or maybe let's say jumping towards completing my syllabus, number one. It should also give me a clarity that what kind of questions, right, could be asked from this particular topic when it comes to prelims, when it comes to mains examination, right?
Online classes offer convenience, but serious aspirants know that UPSC success demands structure, focus, and personal support, found only in physical classrooms. Classroom learning enables real-time interaction, ensuring no question goes unanswered. This immediate feedback fosters a deeper understanding and builds confidence. After-class interactions with faculty turns doubts into discussions and guidance into growth. These personal moments are the stepping stones to your UPSC success. Peer discussions in classrooms foster collaboration, critical thinking, and camaraderie, qualities essential for UPSC success. Classroom tests mirrors the intensity of the UPSC exam with real-time supervision and in-depth evaluations. Every test becomes a learning experience. Mock interviews in classrooms recreate the pressure of UPSC interviews. With constructive feedback, aspirants refine their responses and build confidence for the real test. A structured environment keeps you disciplined and focused. With fixed schedules and personal accountability, classrooms ensure you stay on track. Faculty members regularly interact with their peers, ensuring students get diverse perspectives on complex subjects. This enriches the learning process and keeps the curriculum dynamic and relevant. Classrooms don't just teach, they inspire. Step into the world with confidence and turn dreams into milestones.
Then, yes, history of India in international movement. ये है history का syllabus, right? What exactly do we read in this? History of India, international movement. Does it talk about anything to be specifically read in history? And what are subtopics are there in history? Starting from ancient history, medieval history, we have modern history, then we have art and culture, then we have world history, then we have post-independence history. Does it talk anything? What exactly do we read here? And that's where maybe whenever you are reading the syllabus of prelims, the syllabus of prelims which UPSC has framed is very wide terms. It does not tell us very specifically what exactly to be read, right? If you see here, Indian and world geography, again, it talks about, yes, we have to read about Indian geography as well as world geography, physical, social, economic geography of India and the world. Then in polity and governance, constitution, political system, panchayati raj, public policy, rights issues, etc. And how should a candidate who is preparing for the examination should interpret this word, etc. If you see here, economic, social development, sustainable development, inclusion, demographic, social issues, etc. General issues on environment, ecology, biodiversity and climate change. Very एक चीज जो स्पेसिफिक की है यूपीएससी ने इस पर्टिकुलर प्रीलिम्स के सिलेबस में, that whenever we are reading the topics of environment, whenever we're in topics of biodiversity, whenever you're talking about climate change, that do not require any subject specialization, wherein it is telling, do not become an environmentalist, do not become a climate change expert. We are only going to test your relevance or maybe of current events happening around what? Environment, ecology, biodiversity, and climate change. Then again, general science. What exactly is general science? क्या है general science? School में पढ़े science? Yes. I want to be an interactive session. You're going over here, right? Yes, ma'am. What subjects to be read in general science? Yes. Physics, chemistry, and space technology. General science means physics, chemistry, and biology. That is how maybe a common man should understand this. Why are you reading physics, chemistry, biology? You're going to be an administrator. What is your utility of reading general science here for this examination? Use in day-to-day life in terms of what? Innovation. Whether you will be innovating anything, just a question, if you are going to become a civil servant, you're becoming an IAS officer, IPS officer, right? What is you or your utility of reading, let's say, biology? That's also general science. Programs, very good, yes. That's where maybe in terms of policy making, recently we had maybe a pandemic in our country, right, across the globe, COVID-19. You must have come across, the government gave awards to maybe leading administrators or maybe district magistrates of certain districts who handled this whole pandemic situation exceptionally well across their districts. Government awarded them, right? Where the administrators doctors? No? Then how can they solve a pandemic situation in a very, or manage that pandemic situation in a very better way? Why? Because the syllabus is itself telling that again you need to read about basic diseases. That whether a disease which is happening around is a maybe viral disease, bacterial disease, or any kind of disease. What happens after disaster? Like disaster management hota hai, we are in sense of biology. Disasters ke baad usually maybe floods, maybe cyclones. What happens after that? Waterlogging leads to what? Which becomes breeding sites for mosquitoes, right? Usually, agar aapke district mein, if you are an administrator, in your district, if there are rising number cases of dengue, chikungunya, malaria, how will you frame policies? Because you are the one who is going to manage the district, where again, an disease of maybe a bacterial viral disease has been spreading around. You are going to make policies for that. And that's where it is being told that you need to read about basic policies. Maybe in terms of, let's say he talked about policy making, maybe you will be framing policies for, let's say, implementing Indradhanush scheme, vaccine policy, right? There was a female IAS officer who has been maybe credited or given credit for the whole idea of polio eradication in the country. She was an administrator through her policy decision-making process. She was the one who pioneered maybe in terms of how polio maybe has eradicated in the country, where again we have a large number of cases of polios. What policy did she do, or how exactly did she do that? That is something very beautiful story to read upon, right? And that's where, now my question to you is, everything whatever have been mentioned in the syllabus of the examination, whenever you come across a self-doubt that why I'm reading this, why for this examination, this subject, every answer is ki everything which UPSC has crafted very beautifully in the syllabus of examination is why it is something which you are going to do once you get into administration. Once you become administrators, everything, and I'll give you examples how and when, everything what have been mentioned starting from history to your ethics paper, everything you are going to do once you get into the administration. And that's the beauty of this particular syllabus of examination, right? But UPSC also tells that you have to be jack of all but master of none, right? Don't become a historian when you're reading history. Don't become an economist when you're reading economics. You need to have a general basic knowledge of all these subjects. Why? Because this is why reading these subjects will align with your career in civil services. And that's why all of the syllabus, all of the subjects have a utility when it comes to my career in the exam or in the civil services, right? And that's how we'll see each by each one topic of the syllabus, how maybe it is important to be read, what all things to be read here, and how it has a relevance in terms of administrations. I would like all of you, maybe whenever we are discussing topics, whenever I ask you questions, that please have one click in your mind. If I'm talking about history, how history is going to help me in my career in civil services. What are civil services, first of all? क्या करोगे आप लोग when you become civil servant? How exactly you're going to work as civil servant? What changes you are going to bring in, right? And how different it is, this career is different from all other careers. Here you're not only going personally, you're growing along with what? Society, country as a whole, right? Your decision making, your policy making is going to impact lives of lot of people who you are administering, right? And that's why this examination, people tell it is very tough. It is not tough. People, students or candidates who understand this examination, understand its importance, understands its utility, right? Then it is very easy. And that's where the very first step at this, before preparing for examination, is to get to know the syllabus first, right? Because the syllabus has to be read in a span of maybe 1 year, 1.5 years, right? But you need to have an overview that if I'm reading history, what should be my mindset to read history? I have read history in class maybe 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. My understanding, my utility of reading history was different. Now I am reading history to become a civil servant. So how maybe a knowledge of history is going to impact my career in civil services, how maybe the knowledge of history is going to help me in policy decision making, how maybe the knowledge of history is going to help me in terms of a lot of things, right, in civil services. That is my utility of reading history. Whenever I'm reading about, let's say, one topic, maybe very briefly, Harappan civilization. If I ask you, how does Harappan civilization maybe talk about the status of women in society in current form? Has anyone written Harappan civilization? What is status of women over there? Status of women were equal at par with the men. And how can we come to a conclusion? Because there's a female goddess picture also, and there is male goddess picture also. That's why we came to a conclusion that in that society, the status of men and women were equal in society. That once we progressed, once we went to Vedic civilization, once we went maybe down the line after that, the status of women started to deteriorate in society, right? And then we saw maybe in the late or early 19th centuries, a lot of social reformers who were men, who started to advocate for what? Women rights in terms of certain social evils, sati, women widow remarriage, right? And then we saw what happened. Once maybe women got uplifted due to these social barriers which they face in life, they started to participate in the decision making, they started to participate in the freedom struggle. And that's where once British government went away and once Indian government started to frame the Indian constitutions, they made sure that again we are going to give some special provisions for women. Why? Because traditionally women have been subjugated to a lot of discrimination. So in order to uplift them in society, there has to be some special status, some special protection given to women and children in society. That's the reasoning you need to build upon once you read history. So again, my point here is that whenever we are reading any topic, please understand that this questioning, this intellectually questioning that why, how, and why it is important for this examination, this should come to your mind. Then again, whenever we read any subject, some people have interest in economics, someone has interest in maybe polity, but every person has this very maybe subject in which he or she does not have any interest. Interest is something you can develop by your thinking, the way you are going to read. If you're going to read history just by the plane of maybe just reading facts, you'll not enjoy history. Your understanding of history should come to a conclusion that I'm reading history not for knowing or not for maybe any factual piece of information. I'm reading history. Why? Because this knowledge of history is important for me as a civil servant to frame policies, because history tells us what have been done, what were there in things in society, and how maybe we have changed, and what situation has led to what condition is prevailing in society. For example, there is a common thing which is being discussed these days is कि few states have went from uniform civil code. क्या है uniform civil code? Anyone? Uniform civil code. Huh? Equal civil laws. What happens in a society? Again, that is a part of a syllabus, first of all. In a society, we are all citizens, right? We are all governed by under one law. Now tell me, if you have committed a murder, assume, right? You have committed a murder. What kind of punishment will be given to you? According to which rule book? Constitution. Chalo, और उसके बाद the three, now IPC has gone, right? Now we have the three new indigenized way of laws, right? So again, you will be giving punishment on the basis of whatever is there have been mentioned in all the three law books, right? If, let's say, you are going to get divorced, which law would prevail here? Huh? Right, that's where the utility of UCC comes into picture, that again, when it comes to certain personal matters, what personal matters? Inheritance, divorce, marriage, right, succession, right, a lot of things, right, when it comes to personal laws, we do not have any uniformity. Just because I'm Hindu, I will be governed by different set of laws. If I'm Muslim, I will be governed by different set of laws. So people ask, we are all Indian citizens, right? Why on certain civil matters we all are become equal, and why on certain personal matters we become unequal? You must have come across a lot of very famous cases in terms of Shah Bano case, in terms of Sarla Mudgal case, right? Wherein a lot of things happened. Shah Bano was a Muslim woman. She went to court and she asked, ki, sir, the amount of meher which I'm getting after maybe a divorce is something very less, right? And maybe the IPC talks about, the CRPC talks about, section 121 of CRPC talks about that again, if a man is destituting a woman after marriage, he or she is supposed to pay this amount of money. But when it comes to me being Muslim, I am not being governed by this CRPC Act, I am being governed by a Muslim Act. This is a discrimination against me. And that's why in the very famous case, in that case, Supreme Court the very first time talked about Uniform Civil Code, but later it was scrapped off. That's where maybe our current Prime Minister in the last year's Independence Day speech have talked about maybe bringing it Uniform Civil Code across the countries. Right, wherein we have seen maybe Uttarakhand or Goa are the states who have went for implementation of UCC. But my question to you is, why, if maybe this is, the term has been mentioned under Article 44 of the Indian Constitutions, that is GPSPs. The state should strive to have uniform civil code. है ना? So जब constitution makers had an idea that we were going to implement, because ideally DPSP talks about what? That whenever state or the government is making policies, these directives have to be kept in mind. So एक directive दिया गया था कि again there has to be UCC, right? But why in 1950 we did not went for UCC? What was the reason? And that's where the role of reading history comes into the picture. एक polity का topic है, right? And that's why the reading in terms of history. Can someone tell me? Very good. So again, when it comes to minorities, what thing comes to your mind? Very good. But again, when I ask what do you understand minorities, what comes to your mind? Usually we talk about religious minorities, right? Whenever you talk about these personal laws, right? We have different marriage laws for Hindus, Muslims, right? But you need to understand minorities does not always include, let's say, religious minorities. There are minorities of what? Tribal. There are certain tribal people in society. People, when India got independent, majority of all of these people have a nationalist kind of feeling, but there were certain indigenous communities, there were certain tribal peoples also in society. India is today maybe grouped as 28 states. Once you see the political map of the country, once India got independent, we were 562 princely states. It was a task of the government to unify the country, right? And that's why maybe the government wanted, if we, at this point of time, we impose strict personal laws which would be uniform to every community, people would not align with us. People would not start trusting the government. They would get a feeling that people, maybe if, let's say, a certain Indian community of, let's say, Nagaland is practicing marriage in their own way, and if government, maybe who came into power and make one marriage law, so they may think as a threat to their what religious beliefs and what kind of customs they practice. That was the idea of not in maybe making uniform civil code as uniform across the country. But now maybe after this 75 years of independence, or 75 years or not independence, but getting a constitutions, it's a right time where again government has started to think on this particular direction. Why are you reading this? What is your utility of reading this uniform civil code, all things? Why? कौन बनाएंगे policies? You, yes, the civil servants, right? And that's how maybe the knowledge of history and everything comes here into picture, right? That's how you need to see things. Don't see one topic only as polity, only as economics, only as, let's say, security, only as disaster management. Every single topic of the syllabus has a multiple linkage. That's how we need to see things, right? And that will give us a clarity how we are supposed to read anything which comes in the syllabus of the examination, right? Very quickly, then again, so whatever is there in the syllabus of history, what exactly has to be read in history, Indian national movement, you have to see the syllabus of GS paper number 1, that is history ki syllabus detail mein di gayi hai wahan par, right? So every subtopic, what exactly to be read in history, geography, polity, environment, you need to refer the main syllabus. So mains is your guiding light that how you need to study for prelims examination. So don't see the syllabus separately for all the 3 stages. Syllabus is uniform, right? Then again CSAT, right? Civil service aptitude, where again 3 kind of questions are being asked: your basic language skills, your basic aptitude skills through reasoning questions and maths questions. Though they have mentioned that questions would be of class 10th level, right? But if you go and see the nature of questions, this paper has actually become tough, right? And you need to be very smart, that, and it's a very important fact that many students have got very good marks in paper 1, but they have failed to qualify CSAT, right? So again, please don't take this paper very lightly. This paper has an equal importance, right? And though it is a qualifying paper, but you need to have basic knowledge of a maths, English and reasoning. That's how is the utility of this particular subject, right? So 33% marks is required in this. Now when it comes to mains, so these are the broad categories. So there are 9 papers. The first paper would be of essay, right? Essay carries how many marks? Very good, 250 marks. Again, you have to write 2 essays, 125 marks essay each. Then again, we have 4 general studies paper, GS 1, 2, 3, 4. What subjects do we have in GS 1? We read about history, then geography, then society. These are 3 primary subjects of GS paper 1. Many times people fail to answer me this question, that what all subjects we are going to read in which paper. Now, paper number 2. It starts with polity and governance, then international relations, then just like we have society, we have social justice here, right? Then paper number 3, economics, disaster management, environment, science and technology, and security issues or internal security. Paper number 4, ethics, integrity and aptitudes, right? So all of these 4 GS papers carries how many marks? 250 marks each, right? And each paper will contain approximately 20 questions. Generally these days there are 20 questions, 10 questions 10 marker, 10 questions 15 marker, and that's how you're going to proceed with this. Then again, we have to choose one optional paper, right? All of you must be knowing. And then again, just like we have CSAT in our prelims examination, here also we have a language paper, 2 qualifying papers. Of one is your English, compulsory English, one would be a language paper. Again, there are list of languages which again UPSC has given you. Maybe your second language, whatever you had in your school, that is going to be your language paper over here, right? And it carries not 250 marks, it carries 300 marks, and you need to score how much percentage here? 25%. So 75 marks or above you need to score. Then again, your maybe other papers of your GS will get checked, or else result would not be published, right? That's how you need to see things. Then the last stage is your personality test. It carries how many marks? 275 marks. So again, whatever marks you'll be getting out of 2025 will determine your rank in the list. Very quickly, what is the objective of this session? Again, we will be covering these three topics very primarily in terms of why UPSC has such extensive syllabus. Number one, how does each section contribute to its in the governance process? Why? Because you are reading it for what? You're not reading to become a historian, not reading it for becoming a geographist. You're reading all of these to become a civil servant. So you need to understand what is its utility in terms of governance process, right? Then the utility of UP subjects in real life administration, right? We'll come across different kind of examples over here. Then what is the key takeaways you will be having it? UPSC syllabus directly prepares you for real administrative challenges. Number two, every GS paper has a practical relevance in governance. Ethics and decision making are as crucial as knowledge, and smart preparation involves integrating subjects, again in terms of prelims, mains and interview. Please understand, it is no separate way of studying all of these things. Don't take it in silos. Everything has to be read by understanding it. We are preparing for one examination. Of course, the nature of preparation changes once prelims approaches, once we are going to write mains, once we are preparing for interview. But again, the core idea is this syllabus of the examination, right? Then, yes, coming down to mains, this is what they have asked you. And that is where you need to have a clarity that how I should be reading this. Maybe I told you na ki everything what UPSC is going to mention or you are reading is something. Why? Because it's important for you to become a civil servant. That is why you're reading this. Is it me telling this? No, it has UPSC telling you this. For example, the main examination is intended to assess the overall intellectual traits and depth of understanding of candidates rather than merely their range of information and memory. What does it mean? All of you know what was the hijab issue? I will discuss briefly some issues which you have knowledge about, right? So hijab issue everyone knows. What happened in hijab issue? College girls of Karnataka, they wore hijab, they entered into the colleges. College people told it is against the civil rules. We have a dress code, and again wearing hijab is something which is not we are going to allow. The girls were not satisfied with the decision of the school. They went to high courts. High court gave a verdict that again schools are right. Wearing hijab, every religion has some core practices which is very important or which is very necessary to have it. For example, we call as essential religious practices. If some practices, if someone is not doing, then him or her practicing that religion becomes dismeaningful. So court told that wearing hijab does not come under the essential religious practices of Islam. And again, if we are not allowing maybe female candidates to wear hijab and enter into school, colleges, they are not being denied their religious rights. That was the judgment of High Court. But the female candidates were not satisfied. They went to the Supreme Court, that is highest court of appeal. The court gave a split verdict in this particular case as of now. One bench has told it should be allowed, one bench has told it should not be allowed. Right? Now, if there's a question in examination or a question in your personality test, sir, what according to you, whether maybe wearing of hijabs should be allowed it or not, what would be your answer? You have read that the Supreme Court verdict say this, you have read the court has given verdict on this particular basis, this particular reasoning. You have read that again what as the college says. You have read also maybe what is the demands of these school-going girls. Now, you have a lot of information. You have knowledge. That is what is happening. Now, my question, my sir and my dear friend to you is, whether what is your thinking? Whether girls should be allowed to wear hijab and enter into school, colleges or not? What is your point of view? Very good, verdict is very good. But that is my question here is ki your point of view is something which is demanded in examination. They are not going to check your intellectual trait. They are not going to check your information and memory. They are going to check what is your understanding, because at the end of the day, you will the ones who will be framing policies on this. if a situation might have arisen in a district of Karnataka where you were posted as a DM, what kind of actions you would have taken, right? That's why every subject, everything which is being done here, or which we are going to read here, we are not just going to read in terms of information and memory, we are going to see in terms of understanding analytical skills, right? For example, women in Sabrimala, what is the current status? Are women allowed to enter Sabrimala temple or not, the Garbhagriha? Yes or no? Someone is saying no, someone is saying yes. You preparing for examination, you need to have an understanding. First of all, you need to be aware that what are these social issues, first of all, right? Achha, is Sabrimala temple issue supposedly us for examination, right? Is it has been a mention in any part of syllabus? Where? Society? Again, मैंने पहले बताया ना कि गवर्नमेंट चाह रही है कि we need to uplift these women, right? Women were the ones who have been subjugated a lot of discrimination in society. Government has made provisions specifically for uplifting status of women in society, right? So again, we are in the subtopic of society, where again he has told role of women and women organizations in terms of social justice. We're going to read things, right? That's where you need to understand कि if सबरीमाला तो हम सब पढ़ रहे हैं, बट सिलेबस से कहाँ लिंक करें इसको, किस पार्ट ऑफ सिलेबस में ही फिट करेगा ये करंट अफेयर्स का टॉपिक. इफ आई टॉक अबाउट हिजाब इश्यूज, वेयर डज दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक फिट इनटू माय सिलेबस? दैट इज हाउ यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड इट, राइट? देन the nature and standard of questions in general studies paper of 2 to 4 will be such that a well educated person will be able to answer without any specialized study, as in it again tells you need not to be a specialized historian, you need not to be specialized economics whenever you're writing a question of answer on economics or history or any other subject for that particular matter, right? You need to have a basic understanding, right? The questions will be such that to test the candidate's general awareness of a variety of subjects, and that's where the rule comes in, which will have a relevance for career in civil services. यही बोला ना कि जितने subjects ही, you'll read a variety of subjects. And what is the utility of reading variety of subjects? Because it will have a relevance in your career in civil services, right? The questions are likely to test candidates' basic understanding of all relevant issues, ability to analyze, take view on conflicting socioeconomic goals. Example, a conflicting issue. Girls are telling we are supposed to wear hijab. Government is telling it is not allowed, it's not coming in ERP, essential practices. What are your viewpoints, right? Objectives and demands, the candidates must give relevant, meaningful and succinct answers. That is how they are going to see it. If you see one line, it is there in every part of syllabus. Government strives to have a workforce which reflects gender balance and women candidates are encouraged to apply. Across the number of pages, जो 70-80 pages syllabus का ना, हर paper के end में ये लिखा हुआ है. What does it signify? What does it signify? Government strives to have a workforce which reflects gender balance and women candidates are encouraged to apply. Empowerment? Why empowerment? What is the need of women empowerment? And that's how you need to start questioning it. यही process है ना? Why she told women empowerment? Why does women require empowerment? We subjugate a lot of discrimination, right? And that's how, if again we have seen, though the status of women started to improve in society, but when it comes to participation in workforce, they face a lot of challenges. Delhi government has maybe made bus tickets free for all the women. Why? It is an encouragement that women, transportation costs should not be a barrier for a woman to go to his or her, specifically her workplace. That's how you see, right? In terms of labor force participation rate, we have seen that women participation is equally important in the economic sector, but still women's are less in terms of labor force participation rate. That's how maybe government, through special provisions, through certain kind of policies, is trying to encourage women candidates in terms of not just private sector but government sector also. That is where the utility comes into picture. You need to understand in this particular manner, right? Then, so again, essay paper ka syllabus, they are very clearly told candidates may be required to write essays on multiple topics. They will be expected to keep closely to the subject of an essay to arrange their ideas in orderly fashion and write concisely. Credit will be given for effective and exact expression. So again, there would be a specific session of essay preparation, but again, this is syllabus of essay. Has it defined syllabus? Has it told which topic would come up in, or which theme is there? Theme is what? What kind of themes you are going to expect in your essay papers? The 4 GS papers. That is the theme, right? It is, if I tell you, it is a whole summary of all 4 GS papers. What you get or grasp is you're going to maybe express in terms of whenever you're writing essays on a variety of topics, right? Then it comes to syllabus. Case tarike se we are going to decode. We'll see the topic. Then we'll see its relevance for UPSC. Then we'll link it to governance and administration. We'll see 1 or 2 previous year questions, and then how to prepare this topic for the examination. That is how you're going to see all the subtopics of syllabus, right? So number 1 is the first paper, GS1, Indian culture, will cover salient aspects of art forms, literature, architecture from ancient to modern times. So what is the timeline being set here? हाँ, तो कितना टाइम का आपको पढ़ना आर्ट एंड कल्चर फ्रॉम एंशिएंट टू मॉडर्न टाइम्स. Where does modern times end? हाँ, इंडिपेंडेंस टिल नाउ, है ना. मॉडर्न टाइम्स का मतलब क्या है? हम कौन से एज में भी, राइट? वी आर अगेन इन मॉडर्न एज अगेन. दैट्स हाउ यू नीड टू सी इट. अगर क्लैरिटी मिलनी चाहिए ना कि सर मुझे इंडियन आर्ट एंड कल्चर, आर्ट फॉर्म्स, लिटरेचर, आर्किटेक्चर पढ़ना तो है, बट कहाँ से कहाँ, व्हाट इज द डिफाइंड एरिया फ्रॉम एंशिएंट टू द मॉडर्न टाइम्स, राइट? एंड व्हाट डज इट टॉक अबाउट? व्हाट आर आर्ट फॉर्म्स? What are art forms? There are 2 types of art forms. One is visual arts, one are performing arts. What are visual arts? Sculptures or paintings. Paintings, chalo. What are performing arts then? Dance forms, then music, right? Then if we read about literature, what is literature? Language, literature, manuscripts, then architecture, temple architecture. अब ये तो अपने सर ने बता दिया. You are going to be civil servant. Why are you going to read this? What is your utility of reading art, literature, and architecture? How it is going to help you in administration? Very good. What was the theme of G20 summit this year, maybe a couple of years back? From where this Vasudev Kutikam word has been picked up? Huh? Vedas? It hasn't picked up from an Upanishad, right? And that's where the utility maybe of a lot of things of culture comes into the picture. Recently we had Mahakumbh is going on as of now, right? Is it a part of a culture? Yes, right. There are a lot of maybe in terms of international relations, India uses a lot of soft powers. Dance forms is a soft power which India showcases. So whenever you have seen maybe G20, why I'm telling you, because people, all of you must be aware of that. Whenever dignitaries were landing at Delhi airport, classical dances were performed. Why? To showcase the rich heritage culture of the India. What kind of written gifts that India gave to dignitaries who came for, let's say, or to the delegates who came for G20 summit in the country? Huh? Bhagavad Gita, yes, or we gave spices, we gave coffee, we gave pashmina shawls. Why? It showcased the part of our culture. है ना? So again, don't restrict yourself in terms of reading these few. Understand ki why we're reading this, right? So maybe in terms of relevance, number 1, it is a recurring topic where again UPSC has always asked 1 or 2 questions from culture in mains examination. Number 1, when it comes to prelims, again there is a test of factual knowledge from art and culture, specifically on art, architecture, literature, cultural traditions, right? Puppetry tradition hai, we have Jainism, we have Buddhism, we have a lot of maybe Sufism, right? Ye hamari different kind of philosophies we have followed, right? That's how you can see from art and culture in prelims, different set of questions are being asked. When it comes to mains, different kind of questions, set of questions are being asked, right? In terms of essay on ethics, cultural heritage and national identity can be linked in terms of ethical governance and policy making, right? Interview में candidates are often asked about regional culture aspects, heritage, conservation and historical developments, right? Wherein supposedly in interview you will be asked, let's say you belong to Madhya Pradesh. They might ask you, tell me what are the important UNESCO sites in Madhya Pradesh, right? That's how you need to see things. When it comes to governance and administration, in terms of culture, policy, and heritage conservation, so you will, as an administrators, you will be ones who will be formulating certain policies or schemes. For example, the schemes like Prasad, Hriday scheme, or Archaeological Survey of India's role in preserving historical sites. If you are posted in a district, that district is maybe known for a lot of historical sites. Supposedly, you are posted in Maharashtra, where again Ajanta Ellora caves are there. How will you manage, or what kind of cultural maybe preserving those historical sites? For example, you are the cultural secretary of India. How will you boost cultural tourism in a country? That's where the utility of reading Indian art and culture comes into picture. This is the relevance you need to understand, right? In terms of tourism economy, again, tourism is linked to which part of the subject, other subject? Tourism leads to, again, has a linkage with which other part of syllabus? History, yes. Economics, very good. Tourism will lead to what? It will boost the economy, right? Maybe we have seen a lot of things happening. Maybe abhi baat chal rahi hai. Recently we had in January the Coldplay concert. Hai na? Then the Prime Minister talked about the idea of concert economy, right? So again, they have told to give impetus to this whole kind of whatever the cultural events which are happening. It is something which is required for economy to grow as well. Hai na? So again, culture, singing, something leading to what? Economic development also. That's how you need to see things. Then promotion of heritage tourism, development of cultural sites under UNESCO World Heritage Site. In terms of soft power international relations, as we have seen, India's use of yoga and classical dances. Again, in terms of international diplomacy and the use of soft powers, India has always used yoga, classical dances, literature, philosophy in global diplomacy, right? When it comes to urban and rural planning, then again, influence of traditional architecture in styles in smart cities and sustainable development. For example, Vastu principles. For examples, how to maybe, if you see a lot of buildings coming these days, did the ancient times we had the concept of air conditions? No? Someone can, again, the support staff will come here, again they will switch it off. But yes, how does Indian reading about Indian architecture talks about that how we are going to have air conditions which were there and what we have now. If you see, all of you must have came across, maybe you are in a demand of saying in Delhi, there are multiple cultural museums, there are multiple cultural sites where again you can go and see how maybe this architecture was built and those architecture were sustainable. What do you understand by sustainable? Huh? Something which is long lasting, not lasting. Sometime maybe development in the way again so that maybe the needs of the future generation could not be compromised, right? That's where the sustainability comes into picture. So in modern architecture, we are again going back to the traditional times where again we had maybe buildings where again in the hot deserts we had buildings, but again there did not, we had maybe let's say the idea of air condition, but still it was some kind of technique was used in architecture which made it a building which had a natural air condition. What was it? Right? That's how you need to see things. Maybe that's where again बोलता ना कि examination में ये नहीं कि you need to close yourself in a room and again prepare for the examination. Maybe go and visit few cultural sites where again maybe you have seen in architecture what they have done. They were having two kind of walls and between walls there was circulation of water. That's how natural air conditions were there. Maybe whenever designs were made, there were few verandas, there were few maybe partitions which had narrow holes. अगर आप देखते होगे ना जितने भी झरखा झरोखा होते हैं, it had what natural holes which led to what circulation of air naturally. That's where the utility comes in terms of reading art and culture here, right? Questions कैसे आते हैं? Let's say with respect to Chauset Yogini temple situated near Morena, which of the following statements is correct? So again, in terms of architecture, we read about a lot of temples, we read a lot about maybe mosques, a lot of things, right? So in terms of architecture, culture, there are these kind of questions, again, of which kind of factual nature are being asked here. Example, maybe in terms of which reference to Mian Tansen, which of the following statements are correct? Tansen was a little give. Again, talking about what? किस part of syllabus को दाता ये? नहीं, अरे यार, हाँ, अभी हम किसकी बात कर रहे हैं? आर्ट एंड कल्चर में भी अब स्पेसिफिक होना है ना, हम ब्रॉड टर्म से बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. तानसेन हु और सानसेन, हाँ, तो विच आर्ट में किस फॉर्म की बात कर रहे हैं हम? हाँ, musicians, right? That's how you need to see thing. Then in terms of sometimes this is very very important, that in terms of current affairs, how shall we prepare in art and culture when it comes to current affairs? Sometimes some type of places comes in newspapers, right? For example, in the 13th 14th January, what do we celebrate? हाँ, Makar Sankranti one, or it is also known as AGA. What do we call it in Punjab? Yes, Lohri. What do we call it in Karnataka? Pongal? Onam in where? And that's again, all of these traditional festivals basically are called as harvest festivals, but again celebrated across the country, but with a different kind of names, right? Maybe the idea of Jallikattu. What is Jallikattu? Huh? Right, right. Yes. So these kind of sometime or the other way, they come in newspapers, right? And whenever, if maybe in a span of 1.5 years, if these kind of cultural events or some places of cultural importance comes up in news, it gives you a hint that out of all the syllabus of current affairs, which themes are important for this year examination. And again, this is not me telling, this is how the analysis of previous year questions of prelims and mains tell us, that some events or some let's say a cultural event or some cultural aspect which is there in news, it is something gives you a hint that maybe what kind of questions could be asked from which particular theme. For example, last year we had the construction of Ayodhya temple in Ram temple in Ayodhya, right? Is it a part of our syllabus? Yes, yes, it should be. Very good. And which part of syllabus? Only art and culture? Architecture, very good. Which style it is? Huh? हाँ, सही बोल रहे हैं, हाँ, अभी वही confidence. Yes. And does okay, we talked about this, that's a cultural aspect. Does this whole construction of Ram temple Ayodhya has only cultural aspect of the syllabus? History, वही तो बता, art and culture, history. Then economy, very good. Economy, how? It led to, number 1, tourism. Number 2, what? Huh? Employment generation, where roadways, where let's say airports or railway stations being constructed at Ayodhya, right? So it leads to what? Maybe the idea, again, एक topic है आपके syllabus of economics में, infrastructure development in terms of roadways, railways, waterways, airways, right? So maybe development led to what? Infrastructure development. जब infrastructure development होगा, what it will lead to what? Employment generation. With employment generation, what would happen? People living in poverty will be reduced or increased? Reduced, right? So yes, it would be reduced. Poverty reduction leads to what? There would be decreased crime rates in society. Because what we have seen, when and at what conditions people do crimes, the crime, again, except for few psychological persons, the crime rates are directly linked with the nature of poverty. People who do not have basic roti kapda makan, they would go for these kind of things. That's how maybe you can interlink ki how maybe one economic development is solving a social problem of maybe crimes in society, right? That's how you need to see things. So again, yes, sometimes some famous places and again tradition comes in newspapers, right? So again, you need to understand that this is how your questions are being framed. Has anyone eaten that rasgulla या रसगुल्ला बोलो, है ना? Does it has any relation with the culture? Yes, which part of syllabus? अरे रसगुल्ला और रसगुल्ला, है ना? Yeah. So has anyone heard of term geographical indication? GI tags पढ़ते हैं ना हम कल्चर में. Why we are giving GI tags? Some time back तिरुपति लड्डू was in news. तिरुपति के मंदिर में जाते हो एक लड्डू मिलती है. It was somewhere in newspapers, right? This is something we are, of course we are going to read in terms of what was the news all about, but it gave me a hint that GI tag or maybe this particular laddu is something which was there in news. GI questions can come up in prelims examinations, right? That's how you need to interlink things, right? Then it comes to mains. Again, basic questions of mains, they ask you how do different Indian classical dance forms reflect regional traditions and aesthetics, right? Evaluate the impact of Buddhist and Jain philosophy on the development of Indian art and culture and architecture. So again, we read philosophy, but it implication in which factor? Architecture. That's how you need to interlink not just culture, but again interlinking of all the three areas: art, architecture, and literature. It should be interlinks of both. This is the favorite topic of UPSC ka. Jainism, Buddhism, right? The Bhakti, again, another favorite topic is Bhakti Sufi movements. Bhakti Sufi movements significantly contributed to enrichment of Indian culture and heritage discuss. So my point here is why I am just telling you, having a brief understanding of these topics, once you have read that, you will be in a position to answer any question. The point here is that if I have read in very serious what is Buddhist and Jain philosophy, but I have not read it in open-minded manner, how I can see that development in terms of Indian art and architecture, right? Every era led to what development. What kind of examples can you give me in terms of Jainism and Buddhism or in terms of Indian architecture? कहाँ दिखता है? Stupas. Then Vaishali. Yes, very good, Vaishali. Anything else? In currency में? And that's how you do see things, right? And that is why I'm, yes, Sarnath pillar. But again, that's how you need to understand that whenever I'm seeing things, whenever reading history, don't just mug it up. You need to understand why it is important for you to be read in terms of career in civil services. आपको ये practically implement करना होगा administration में आके. That is where the utility comes into picture, right? Then broadly, how should we read? Maybe the topic of art and culture for examination is we need to focus on these three eras in terms of Indian art and architecture: ancient, medieval, and modern, including from again lot of periods starting from Indus Valley till the British period and the modern times. UNESCO cites sometimes, which is very important, comes in newspapers. Their significance, government initiatives for their conservation. Sarkar kya kar rahi hai? You will be the ones who will be working, making policies. Then important literary works, Vedic text, Sangam literature, Bhakti Sufi poetry. Why? Because sometimes some people around which are associated with this kind of literature comes in newspapers in terms of their birth anniversary, that anniversary, 50 years, 75 years, 100 years. That becomes that this theme is important for that particular year, right? Linked to cultural policies to current affairs, such as India's initiatives promoting yoga and Ayurveda globally, right? Then coming to the next topic, that is history. So history में क्या पढ़ना है? History of India and Indian national movement, that was mentioned in the Prelims syllabus. So again, you got to know, going to read about Indian art and culture. Then we are going to read about from middle of 18th century to the present and context till freedom struggle. For example, modern Indian history about middle of 18th century until the present, significant events, personalities and issues. What does significant events talk about? क्या समझेंगे हम? Significant events. Satyagraha movement. But again, how should I understand that this event is significant and this is not significant? In terms of its impact, right? In not society, in terms of freedom struggle, right? So then again we see a lot of events happening. Maybe what was the first war of independence which India fought? 1857. What happened in 1757? कब से बोला गया है पढ़ने के लिए हमें? Middle of 18th century. Which year we are discussing here? 1757. What happened in India 1757? Battle of Plassey, right? So still then until the present times, we are going to read about significant events, personalities and issues. So whenever we are reading history, don't just start mugging up history. First of all, you need to have a timeline. What led to what? That is chronology. Whenever you read in a chronological manner, it starts to make more sense, right? Maybe we had a different course of history till 1757. Once we give maybe after 100 years, maybe the first war of independence we call as maybe the whole 1857 war. What happened after that? What led to the birth of Indian Congress in 1885? Safety wall theory, है ना? What is utility? Then again, once Congress was formed, within Congress there was a division. One became extremists, one became moderates. And then there was entrance of, from South Africa, Mahatma Gandhi ji, right? How did the course of independence changed with the coming of Mahatma Gandhi? Where again, certain similarities were there in the conditions of South Africa and India. How did he interlink things? What kind of mechanisms did he follow? What kind of policies did he had, right? Then maybe in terms of there was a time where again Gandhiji went away from the active politics, right? With the whole what event was it? Chauri Chora, right? Where again Gandhiji told ki no, we are going to. He had the idea of what we call as getting independence with the idea of non-violence, satyagraha, and all those principles. Then he again came back in the Indian politics, and then again we had World War I, we had World War II. Right? This is a chronology. So once you are reading history, what is a maybe technical issue? What we do, we read facts. We do not understand the chronology. So chronology is something which is very important. Facts, again, with multiple readings, you can automatically remember that, right? And that's where maybe the idea of reading history comes into picture in terms of significant events, personalities, and issues. Freedom struggle, again in various stages. One phase where again we did not had any kind of maybe what we call as there was no Congress. Then we had Congress, and there were important leaders. At some point of time, women started to participate in the freedom struggle. Then where there were peasant movements, there were tribal movements, right? So again, freedom struggle, contributions from different parts of the country. That is how I need to read history. That is my syllabus. Link to governance, how it can be linked to governance. Evolution of Indian state, right? Again, what happened after 1947? India mein kya hua? We got independent, right? Constitution bana, right? Constitution kab bana? 1950, very good. So till 1947, we had a government. That government was British government. And again, governance was being done in the country. Technically, we did not had any government after 1947. But we knew that again, this particular date, 15th of August 1947, India is going to get independent. That's why you see in 1946, right, where again we started to make our constitution. The Constituent Assembly was being made, right? But technically, we did not had any government. Then it was decided ki yes, all the people of the country. What is the idea of democracy? Rule by the people, for the people, of the people. We had a principle of democracy. Democracy is again of two types: direct democracy and indirect democracy. What is direct democracy? Which you participate in the democracy or the government process, right? Do we participate in the governance directly? No. How do we do it? Indirect. What is indirect? We as citizens, we choose our representatives, and those representatives make policies for us. So the process that we trusted someone, जब India independent हो गई 47 में, the citizens of the country trusted a group of people, and that became a political institution that we call as state. Then again, we read state had different organs, right? That's how maybe you can see ki how maybe starting from history gives an idea ki initially we were in a colonial rule, right? And what kind of governance mechanisms helps in comprehending the modern day administration. We see a lot. We have what we call as parliamentary form of government. From where do we have this? Where do we have borrowed this? The major policy, though maybe it is told that presidential form of government is very powerful, US has presidential form of government, but why we were accustomed to what kind of governance, what kind of model of working of the government? The parliamentary form of government, right? That's how maybe we can understand why reading history becomes important in terms of understanding the current policy in terms of administration, right? Then development of constitution starting from the regulating act till the current provisions of the constitution, right? In terms of democratic institutions, Talking about parliamentary democracy, judiciary, rights-based governance, track back to this period. Then again, what was the idea of rights? सबसे पहले कहाँ आया था rights? हाँ? Bill of Rights. In terms of UK, अगर हम उसके context में बात करें, Magna Carta, right? That's how maybe in terms of rights somewhere which were drilled really scripturally, right? That's how you need to see things. Then again, regional movements in terms of peasant uprisings, tribal movements, social reforms relevant for policies implementation. Then public administration and social reforms, role of freedom fighters in social justice, abolition of untouchability and women's empowerment. There were a few important leaders who advocated for women's rights. For example, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwara Vidyasagar, Dayanand Saraswati, right? That's how maybe, this is how history tells us and links it to the governance aspect. We read about, let's say, we have reservation policy. Why do we have reservation policy? And how, what does history talks about why do we have reservation policy now? Traditionally, the society was divided on the basis of 4 varnas. Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. Occupations were attached to a person of which caste or which varna he or she belonged to. Right? And that's how the last varna suffered the idea of untouchability, social discrimination. Right? And that led to of not their upliftment in society. And that's where the government, when again the constitution was being made, it was seen. Gandhi ji ne bola, when Mr. Ambedkar, please go for local governance. Please tell maybe the idea of grassroots democracy, what we have in terms of panchayat municipalities. Gandhi ji advocated for social governance or grassroots governance in the very beginning, in the very inception. But Mr. Ambedkar ji told the society is not ready. Once you go to the villages, people have caste things in their mind. People are going with the notion of class. And people are not ready to self-govern themselves. So of course, we are going to give them self-governance, but once they are ready. Right? And that's why we do 73rd and 72nd, 73rd Amendment Act, we had the idea of what we call as panchayats and municipalities coming into picture. Right? And that's why the role of reservations comes into picture. Reservations पे कहीं नहीं लिखा है in the constitution that again we are going to give reservations to SC, STs or OBCs. The term which is being used in constitution, what? Economically and socially backward people. Then again we categorized. अगर current context में देखो अभी बात चल रही है, there should be sub classification within scheduled castes also. Once we have seen in the Indra Sahani case, the other backward classes again were categorized. Some people who have income threshold levels upper, they would not be availing the benefits of OBC reservation. Then it was being talked ki why we have seen within some SC communities, some SC people have uplifted in their position in society, some have not uplifted them. Right? So again, that is why the whole idea of sub-classification of SC community now. Right? That's how you need to read history in terms of this. Then it comes to questions, किस तरीके से आती है again part of कैसे पढ़ना है इसे. Questions on British policies, nationalist movements, post-independence developments frequently appear. In prelims, they ask basically factual knowledge, events, act, personalities, right? Sometimes maybe with the whole idea of when again we had this year we are going to celebrating 75th year of making of Indian Constitution. Republic था ना, कौन सा republic था ये? So again a landmark year. So think again how what kind of questions could be framed in prelims from this particular topic this year, right? Then it comes to again in essay you can give a historical angle to your essays in terms of interview moral values of leaders, let's say Gandhiji, Bose, Ambedkar, which inspires us for ethical governance, because these leaders we are going to read specifically in your paper number 4 also. Some questions, freedom fighters, they have given who among the following was actually associated with what we call as Gadar party. So again, ये कैसा question है? Analytical or factual? Again, it talks about Gadar party was an event, a significant event. So event के around one question. That's how you need to see questions किस तरीके से आती है, right? Then in terms of there are many important movement organizations. Again, who were those leaders? Match the following. Then in terms of maybe mains, discuss the role of women in Indian freedom struggle with a special reference to participation in revolutionary movements. In terms of to what extent the role of moderates prepare a base for wider freedom struggle. So again, all of these in terms of analysis. Again, एक question आया था UPSC में, what would have been the nature of India's independence if there were no Mahatma Gandhi? अब ये है क्वेश्चन किसका? हिस्ट्री का आपसे क्या पूछा गया, पूरा हिस्ट्री आपने पढ़ लिया, दे आर टेलिंग यू टेक आउट महात्मा गांधी फ्रॉम द इंडियन फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल, हाउ वुड यू इमेजिन व्हाट काइंड ऑफ फ्रीडम और स्ट्रगल, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ फ्रीडम वुड यू हैव गॉटेड, व्हेन डिड वी हैव गॉटेड द इंडिपेंडेंस, दिस वाज अ क्वेश्चन इन प्रीलिम्स 2016, सॉरी मेंस 2016 ऑफ द एग्जामिनेशन, है ना. So does it talks about any kind of information? No, it tells how we have analyzed it. Right? We have seen ki what happened to the course of Indian freedom struggle when Gandhiji were there. What kind of principles did he followed? If we would have not followed those principles, what kind of India independence we could imagine? That you have to write in that particular answer. Right? So history is not about knowing things; it is all about analyzing also. Which event led to what? Which personality that contributed what, and what would have happened if that personality was not there, right? Think from that terms also, right? Then in terms of kaise padhna hai, again the first idea as I discussed also, apply a chronological approach, hai na, that is how you can map things of history. Acts policies focus on again regulating acts, economic drain theory, all important kuch theory di thi na British principles ke in terms of your NCRTs. Then freedom struggle, different kind of phases. There were in revolt, then again moderate extremist phase in terms of Gandhian movement. Then again there were revolutionary movements with the coming of Subhash Chandra Bose, right? Then some PYQs will give you an idea ki factual questions kis tarike se aa rahi hai. But again now if you see maybe a couple of years, the nature of questions have also changed. They're all not, and why I told you to read chronology, they will give you 4 events. Right? They do not tell you to maybe arrange in terms of the year, but they ask you which event happened after what. Right? That's how maybe this chronology will help you to solve these kind of questions also. Right? Then current affairs, discussions on nationalism, identity politics, governance issues has a linkage in terms of history also. Right? Next, post-independence and consolidation and reorganization within the country. What is post-independence? What happened in the country? What was the major task of the government after that? हम पूरा link कर रहे हैं ना, history क्या था, right? And how maybe what happened after, what were the challenges with the government after 1947? Integration of states, very good, right? Then formation, making of the Indian constitutions, then elections, very good, एक topic की आजकल चल रही है, one nation one election, right? And maybe did we had one nation one election in the year, maybe since 1950 to approximately 4/5/1967 we had the idea of one nation one election. What is one innovation? Because all the elections would happen at the very same interval, no separate elections for, let's say, state governments or the national government, but somehow it may be backtracked, and again we went for different models of, let's say, making having elections in a country, right? But that's how you need to understand ki something what happened of the country after independence. The major challenge was the political map of the country looked very small princely states. The idea of reorganization, who has been given the title of maybe unification of the country in terms, right? Some time back he was in news. Why? कहाँ है ये? गुजरात में कहाँ? Go and see. And that's why this, maybe whenever in that particular year that personality was in news, there was a question in mains on the topic of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, right? That's how you need to understand it, ki why some personality, if it is some or the other way it is in news, that personality becomes important for prelims or in mains examination question paper, right? Okay. So again, in terms of relevance, again paper 1 में there are again questions on this. Then again prelims, UPSC asks factual important questions in terms of important committees, commissions. अब सबसे बड़ा था reorganization में क्या problem आया? What was the problem with the reorganization of states? What should be the basis? किस basis पे states को एक किया जाए? Many people told in terms of language. Many people told a lot of things. There were different committees set up by the government, right? Then how this committee performed, what was the criteria, what was the rationale, what was the logic, right? That's how you need to understand it. That's how you need to currently, इसका importance current context में किस तरीके से है आपके governance process में. Still there are demands for different small states. है ना, demands होता है कि नहीं, कहाँ है अभी current demand? The Nagas are asking for a different state. The Maharashtra, Vidarbha, Marathwada region is asking for a different state. Why is this demand? Right? Then in terms of essay, again, integration in terms of history. Then in ethics and interview, yes, how maybe in terms of decision making, what was the idea of Mr. Patel, Mr. Nehru and other leaders in terms of integrating India's diverse region? There was a major challenge. India is a very diverse country. If you go from Gujarat to, let's say, northeastern state, there's a complete difference of in terms of language, in terms of food, in terms of living style, but still we are united as a country. Right? That's how, what is the integration, what did they do, and how it is important for the current administrators. Maybe there are a lot of problems in terms of communism, in terms of religious, let's say, intolerance in society. But how maybe we are still sticking together, what is the idea which is binding us together, that has to be read. That history tells us. Right? In terms of governance, yes, state organization too, the idea of what we call as federalism, right? In terms of integration to princely states, then linguistic reorganization, border issues and security challenges. Still we have insurgency in Nagaland, Mizoram, Punjab, right? Economic planning, role of 5-year plans. ये भी कब हुआ था? Independence के बाद ही हुआ था ना? We went for 5-year plans. Now again, this planning commission has been scrapped off with the coming of Niti Ayog, right? Then democratic stability, first general elections, till then again Nehruvian socialism, then constitutional amendments shaping the governance, right? That's how you need to understand post-independence part. Few questions कैसे आते हैं? Again, in prelims examination, the first democratically elected communist party government was formed in Kerala in 1957. The Supreme Court of India struck down the dismissal of Kerala government in 1959 as unconstitutional, which of statements are correct, incorrect. ये कहाँ मिलेगा आपको? These informations. NCERT, right? After India, after independence, right? Then linguistic organization के theme पे question, सरदार पटेल के integration में देखो उसी साल question आया ना, 21 पे हुआ था ये, exactly a question 21, right? Then how to fight against success of India's democracy was largely due to leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru. So again, you have a read history, but again we need to understand how its leadership helped in making of success of India's democracy, right? Then challenges faced by India immediate aftermath of independence, how were they addressed by leadership at that particular time? क्या challenges थी India के पास post independence के बाद, right? Then किस तरीके से करना है? Understanding key phases, how did it happen? Princely states से reorganization से political consolidation, then followed by important commissions, committees, then role of 5-year plans, landforms, Nehruvian socialism, border issues, insurgencies, and current event happening around, for example, Vidarbha, Gorkhaland, federalism debates, right? That's how we need to see things. Then lastly, history of the world, where again we are going to reading from what? World history is something which is not asked generally in your prelims question papers. They are asked in terms of your mains question papers, right? And we need to understand what major landmark event happened around the world which have a relevance in Indian context. For example, if I ask you, how do you see with the coming of AI, artificial intelligence is something which is talked about, how you can link a significant event in the history which has a linkage with coming of AI in the country. Very good. With industrialization, what happened? There was a job loss, short-term job loss. Why? People were not skilled enough to run those machines. In a similar manner, now also, people are anticipating or having an anticipation that again AI is going to take our jobs. But of course, these are what? Machines, machine learning, machine languages which works on data. At the end of the day, these machines are being trained by what? Humans only. So skill development is being required. That's how maybe tell agar question se pucha jaye, history repeats itself. What kind of conclusion, what kind of arguments can you give? Yes, this is how you would see things. Something which is happening around has a linkage in terms of history also. So world history ke jitne bhi important events hai, you need to understand that you have to read not all of those, but all those events which has an implication in India. For example, during World War I, the British government told ki support us, we are going to give you independence. In World War II as well, that's why maybe the 3 roundtable conferences happened over there, right? Then after maybe the Second World War, they again told, please support us, we will give you independence. And that time, of course, they gave, right? That's how you need to see how maybe significant events happening in history have shaped the current situation in the country as of now, right? So again, uske baad bhi, again, there are many things. global events and which shape the modern world and their impact on India. Then again, it is very important for also what understanding international relations. For example, a lot of disturbance in West Asia, the Israel-Palestine issue, है ना? इसका कहाँ genesis कहाँ से हो रहा है? World history, right? That's how you need to see things. Globalization, post-World War, global order helps in analyzing, because what happened was there were two major blocks. One was led by USA, one was led by USSR. है ना? India had relations. India is a country which maintains very what we call as diplomatic relations with all of the country. Maybe if we talk about did India supported the whole Russia-Ukraine war? Because India has a very good trading relations with Russia. But at a global front, where again India also maybe not in any way supports terrorism, not in any way supports war, but giving a stance, did India in the whole Russia-Ukraine war gave its stance? It did not condemn, it did not advocate it, did not support it and not tell it. That's maybe the kind of, maybe what kind of viewpoint did we had at that particular situation, that's all. Maybe in the recently what has happened, Champions Trophy होने वाली है. We're going to have Champions Trophy. Are we playing in Pakistan? No. Why? नहीं न्यूट्रल काउंट्री पे खेलेंगे, बट क्यों नहीं खेल रहे पाकिस्तान में? Why we are not playing? Huh? The idea of our foreign minister telling is the security and the safety of the players. But don't you think it itself is a message, because cricket has been used as a soft diplomacy, wherein maybe currently Netflix पे series भी आई है, if you can watch it, India Pakistan whole war. Again, in the era of Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he used cricket as a tool of maintaining relation between the two countries, and that's how we see the whole idea of where again India went for a series in Pakistan. There's whole launching of buses, trains, Sadbhavana Express, everything. Relations started to get really well. But Pakistan में एक problem है, state-sponsored terrorism. That India does not align with, and that's where we told कि we are not supporting, and this is a stance of India towards Pakistan, telling कि even if at some point of time we used cricket as a tool for maintaining relations, but now we are itself telling कि safety and security, and this is our stance towards you when it comes to relationship building or the bilateral relation between India and Pakistan, that we are very clear that whatever happens we are not going to play there. That's how you see things, right? That's how current event ka utility in terms of international relations with respect to post-independence, right? Then after this we'll give a break of 10 minutes, right? Then impact of Indian history, policy making, global institutions, right? Geopolitical changes, contemporary relevance, these are the all issues. ये PPT आपके portal पे maybe in the whole session will upload it, so that maybe at the given span of time you're not able to interlink, but again you can interlink later by seeing how it is relevant in terms to administration also, right? Then few questions. Prelims पे questions नहीं आते, but in terms of mains, how industrial revolution impacted societal structures and economic policies. क्या हुआ था? It led to industrial revolution, led to what? Job losses. How it impacted what? Social structures and economic policies, right? Then examine the reasons for rise of fascist ideologies in Europe between the two wars. How did decolonization shape the post-war after the global order, right? Basic things, how maybe in terms of world history we're going to see in terms of Indian context. That's how the use of world history comes through here, right? Again, in a similar manner, chronology, linking it to Indian history, then focus on political philosophies in terms of communism, socialism, capitalism, and in governance models, global institutions, UN, IMF, World Bank, WTO, World War II के बाद क्या-क्या चीजें हुई थी, and contemporary relevance in terms of Cold War policies, economic reforms, global trade tensions on India policies today, right? That's how you need to see the whole topic of history per se, right? Do we need a break? We'll take a break of 10 minutes and then we'll wind up maybe in next 1 hour. Okay.
Does your current affairs preparation feel unorganized and scattered? Vision IAS Digital Current Affairs platform brings everything you need under one roof. Whether you are starting with the basics or looking to refine your preparation, Vision IAS Digital Current Affairs premium features include Vision Intelligence. Get AI-driven responses to your current affairs questions. Instant, syllabus-aligned and precise. Daily answer writing. Enhance your mains preparation with structured answer writing and expert feedback. Quick notes and highlights. Streamline your note-taking and create personalized revision materials for easy reference. And free features include daily news summaries. Stay updated with curated insights from trusted sources like The Hindu and Indian Express, saving you valuable time. Downloadable PDFs. Organize study materials efficiently for seamless revision. Daily quizzes. Sharpen your knowledge with MCQs that track your progress and reinforce learning. Student dashboard. Keep your preparation on track with a performance monitoring system. Visit our website to explore the features and get started today.
The final step of your UPSC journey is here, the personality test. Are you ready to face the panel with confidence? This stage isn't just about what you know, it's about how you present yourself. At Vision IAS, our personality development program is designed to prepare you for success. Here's how we help you shine. Decode detailed application form with expert insights for key questions. Mock interviews with ex-bureaucrats and top mentors. Current affairs sessions for a broader perspective. Sharpen communication and presentation skills. Toppers and serving officers share real-world strategies to help you stand out. This is your moment. Shape your success, work on your presentation, and own the UPSC personality test. Admissions open for UPSC Mains 2024 qualified students. Lacking behind in general studies for prelims and feeling overwhelmed? Join the Fast Track Course 2025 and stay on track to conquer UPSC Prelims 2025 with innovative curriculum, revision and mentorship. Tailored to help aspirants actualize their potential into competencies, the program offers a comprehensive approach covering every aspect of students' preparation including GS Prelims syllabus, regular practice, performance assessment and feedback. With only a few months left for Prelims 2025, optimize your time efficiently with focus on core topics. Available in online mode, take advantage of the flexible learning schedule and prepare as per your needs with the dedicated student portal. Admission to the course is now open. Enroll today and benefit from its enriching features.
Okay, so the next topic here would be Indian society, right? Again, a paper part of paper 1. So again, Indian society, role of women, women organizations, population associated issues, poverty, developmental issues, urbanization, the problem. So Indian society again primarily has been described as a silent bowl, right? And why we are reading about Indian society? What is the utility? Society again, because there are many social factors which comes into consideration while framing policies in terms of decision making also, right? So again, that is why we are telling that India is a land of unity in diversity, right? Though we are a group of diverse people staying in a country, but we are all united as a country with the idea of what? With the idea of nationalism, with the idea of what? Patriotism, right? That's how we can see things, right? So again, women organizations. What are women? As we discussed a lot about women towards history, that's how you can interlink it. Why is it important to be read about women? Why? Because they have been subjugated from let's say historically, they have been subjugated to a lot of discriminations, right? And that's why we're reading about women organizations. Any example of women organizations? आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर्स, आशा वर्कर्स, है ना, उनके बारे में हम क्यों पढ़ते हैं? बिकॉज दे आर स्पेसिफिक, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट हैज अ टारगेट ऑफ uplifting the status of women in society, right? Then in terms of population and associated issues, as we discussed, population rise leads to what? If in a given set of area the population is rising, so what would happen? The demand of the resources would increase or decrease? Increase, right? So again, if demand on the limited set of resources is increasing, it would lead to what? Demand is more, supply is less. Then again, it will lead to what? Unemployment. It will lead to crisis situations. It will again lead to poverty. Poverty will lead to increase in crime rates in societies, right? One example is how you can interlink it with. Again, it leads to poverty, developmental issues. Poverty ke saath it completes what? A lot of developmental challenges, right? Then in terms of urbanizations and their problems and their remedies. What is urbanization? Wherever you come across a word zation, it means it is a process, right? What is urbanization? Making of the urban areas, right? So what are the problems with this? If I talk about recently, in last couple of years, we have seen Bangalore is a city which has went for urbanization, and it has led to a problem of water crisis in Bangalore. How does urbanization leads to water crisis? Maybe a mixture of geography as well as society. Urbanization is a social phenomena which has led to a geographical issue or a water shortage. How? With urbanization, it leads to what? Concretization. We have read in class 6th or 7th, I am assuming, water cycle. What is water cycle? Water naturally recycles itself. As in, what happens? There is evaporation, there is condensation, then again rain happens, and again through ground it percolates and the groundwater gets recharged. In the process of urbanization, what is happening? Concretization, right? Wherein the area where again water is naturally percolating, there are urban centers. So due to this, groundwater is not getting recharged. And that's why we see the problem of water shortages, where again NITI Aayog has given us reports. But is it a problem only for India? There are multiple, maybe that's where you reading newspapers, you reading best practices across the globe comes into picture. New York was also a city which went for urbanizations. They did not face the problem water crisis? Yes, it faced. How did it tackle that situation? It tackled it. Why? Because the process or the concrete which is being used, it is somewhere the material which is being used for urbanization in New York cities, the chemical composition makes it something somewhere permeable of nature. The permeability of the concrete increases. That's how naturally. Yes. Very good. That's how you need to understand how best practices across different countries can also be linked in Indian context. We talk about women's safety. Why? Maybe there are different countries. Maybe if you go to Afghanistan, situation of women is different. When we go to, let's say, Norwegian countries, the situation of women is different. Once we go to US, European countries, situation of women is different, right? Then how it is. Maybe we are giving, let's say, women have a right to wear burqas in a country. But when you go to France, it is something different, right? That's how maybe you need to interlink what is happening around and across the country and how it is important for me to be read as an administrator, right? Globalization. What is globalization? We went for LPG reforms in 1991, right? We opened the economy. So again, they're asking not the impact of globalization in economy, they're asking globalization impact on society. Every time, every year, they have asked one question on globalization's impact in society. For example, impact of globalization on elderly population of the country. Example, maybe impact of globalization to the whole setup of nuclear family structure in the country. Examination, impact of globalizations on maybe work-life balance. COVID-19 में क्या हुआ था? Work from home culture एक आया था, है ना? That is something can be linked to here. Maybe a lot of things in terms of global perspective, right? Then social empowerment, communism, regionalism, and secularism. So these are very technical terms. What is communalism? Affinity for belonging towards a particular community. What is regionalism then? Affinity of oneself belonging to a particular region. What is secularism? What kind of model do we have in our country? Is India a secular country? Yes. How can we know this? The idea of secularism somewhere started in the European concept, where again the state and the church got completely divorced from each other. As in, it was discussed that state will not interfere in religious matters, the church would not interfere in administrative matters or state matters. Do we follow this in India? No. We have a little bit tweak on this. As in, India is not a religious country, India is not an anti-religious country, India is not an irreligious country. What does it talk about? Does Indian government advocate for any particular religion? No. Then Does Indian government stops you from practicing religion of your own choice? No. Itself, again, is India or the government talking bad about any particular religion? No. That's how maybe the idea of secularism of India is somewhere different from the Western idea of secularism. That's how we need to see things, right? Why is it important? Yes, because again, questions on diversity, challenges, and reforms have been asked in the question papers in terms of governance, paper 2 and paper 3. है ना? It is not a topic of paper 1, but again, it is interlinked to the topic of paper 2 and 3. Why? Because poverty, women empowerment, urbanization, globalization affects what? The policy making, right? For example, useful again for SOE papers of secularism, communism, gender empowerment topics aa sakte hain, aise ki you can give a social angle to this, right? And again, in terms of ethics, many social challenges required an ethical and administrative approach in governance. For example, recently in the RG Gar case, what happened? The court gave a verdict, right? So there has been a debate at one, let's say, for one particular maybe instance where again we are talking about women's safety. There are multiple laws we have for women's safety. We are encouraging through this, we have seen now, government is encouraging women participation in the workforce. But is the workforce safe? That has sparked a new debate altogether, right? That's how we need to interlink things, right? Then in terms of governance, again, we have seen that again programs like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Manrega, urban development, smart cities missions, it is all linked to what? Society, right? Then in terms of globalization impact of what? Technology, in terms of cultural shifts from a traditional society, where again we have seen that again India is also going to have what kind of families? Traditional families, say joint families, we are venturing into what? The idea of having nuclear families, right? Women, now maybe we talk about maybe co-parenting is a new concept which has come up. That is not only women who is supposed to parent a child, it is a men also. That's why we see we have also went for an idea of paternity leaves. है ना? ये सब क्या है? एक idea of progressive society, right? Then assessing social issues in terms of government tackling casteism. Government कैसे tackle कर रही है the problem of caste, regionalism, ensuring social harmony. Because a lot of events happening around, right? On the ideas of religion, on the ideas of region, on the idea of community, right? Lot of maybe disturbances happening. Maybe recently in the state of Manipur, we are going to have the president's rule, right? So again, that is somewhere linked to society. As in, we see women's were targeted in this whole social movement in Manipur. Is it not maybe somewhere talking about the women's rights? Right, that's how we need to see things. Then empowerment and social justice, strengthening marginalized communities through reservations, legal protections, and affirmative actions. For caste, we have reservation. For women, we have uplifted, we have given some special status to them in terms of our constitution, in terms of policy making, right? And in terms of different schemes, what we have seen through. Right, then again questions कैसे आते हैं, कैसे पूछेंगे, what is social capital? इस टाइप के क्वेश्चंस पेपर ना, दैट्स वेयर द रोल ऑफ रीडिंग एनसीईआरटीज कम्स इनटू पिक्चर, है ना? सो क्लास 6 से क्लास 12 की एनसीईआरटी इज मस्ट टू बी रेड आफ्टर मे बी यू हैव गेट अ नॉलेज, सो दैट टू बिफोर understanding or reading everything in detail of the syllabus, you have an overview of everything. And these NCERTs gives a brilliant scope. And maybe we have seen some questions are directly picked from certain themes and certain or maybe certain boxes में कुछ होते हैं ना, directly picked from those itself, right? Then in terms of following statement, caste plays an important role in social mobility in India. Caste has no relevance in urban areas. Caste-based affirmative actions have contributed to economic growth. So again, a society question in terms of prelims also. A general question caste के ऊपर, है ना? Then mains में of course diversity was significance, globalization again in traditional Indian values and customs, right? What we have seen here, how maybe traditional Indian values and customs have changed. Anyone? Has it changed? We see celebration of Diwali also in White House. Is it not a cultural significance of globalization? We have again seen maybe a lot of Western, maybe kind of festivals, Western kind of things celebrating in India as well. That's how we can see culture is a medium of exchange in terms of a globalized world also. Globalization does not only restricted ourselves to maybe in the terms of economy, in society also we are going to see the visible manifestations of globalizations. How maybe through Western countries, Western ideas, Western maybe good practices we have maybe incorporated in Indian society and vice versa, right? Then communalism, देखो direct keyword से in society is a very beautiful part. Directly from keyword, some questions are being asked. Again, so if you read all of these keywords very specifically, you can easily answer the questions, right? How to be prepared? Again, सोशल स्ट्रक्चर को देखना है, क्या क्या पॉलिसी, क्या क्या फंडामेंटल्स हैं हमारे सोसाइटी में, कास्ट, रिलीजन, डाइवर्सिटी, women issues को देखना है, urbanization, developmental issues, social issues like poverty, illiteracy, communism, secularism, regional disparities. Why I have given this slide is to make you understand around these topics there would be news in newspapers, there would be news for all the things we have picked up. Within this topic, maybe I have discussed about communism, but what exactly to build in communism, you need to understand through these policies, right? Linking to governance, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, smart city missions, then impact of globalization, modernization versus cultural erosion, increased economic disparity and digital divide. That's how we need to see things. Then geography. So again, geography basically it talks about India and world geography. There again there are two components. One would be physical geography, one is human geography, one is economic geography, right? That's how we need to see things. But why geography is important for me to be read? Today we had an earthquake in Delhi itself, right? Right, and where was the focal, or the epicenter, right? What is the magnitude? And which scale do we measure that magnitude? Right, again, why is it important for me to be read? The Honorable Prime Minister told, maybe given maybe a press release that again, aftershocks may be observed. So be prepared, do not panic. ऐसे situations में क्या होता है? People start panicking. What is the role of an administrator? If you have knowledge about maybe earthquakes, why we read about tsunamis, why we read about earthquakes? It is something which you are going to face. And policy making is required in this direction as well. We talk about the problem of air pollution in Delhi. Does geography has any contribution in terms of air pollution in Delhi? आप देखते होगे in the coming week, few days, whenever the wind movement is high, the air quality is improving. And some days when again we do not have any wind movement, the air quality again goes to the index becomes higher. So again, the location of the geography of Delhi itself has been a contributing factor to the air pollution in Delhi. We talk about jet streams, we talk about western disturbances, right? A question आया था UPSC में, Delhi, Bombay and Hyderabad or maybe Kolkata all being a metropolitan city, why Delhi only faces a problem of air pollution? In geography question was being asked. Right, yes, very good. That's मेरा context वही है कि don't read geography only in terms of understanding the geographical phenomena, interlink it with the syllabus or maybe the current relevance in terms of you reading geography for career in civil services. Clear? So a few examples. Again, mains के GS paper, prelims पे कैसे questions आते हैं? Again, factual knowledge in terms of earthquakes, volcanoes, monsoons, ocean currents, industrial locations. Linked to environment, disaster management से भी link करते हैं in terms of climate change, deforestation, right? Again, specifically map-based questions are being asked, right? Wherever maybe sometimes West Asia is in news, you can see a question on map of maybe West Asia. They can maybe ask you to arrange countries from east to west, north to south. They have also asked questions once you're moving from Kanyakumari to let's say Kashmir, how many states, Indian states shall you pass for navigating through a shortest route? ऐसे questions आते हैं. Why? Because again, it is important for you to read about maybe the maps, maybe the world map, physical map, political map. That's where the utility of geography comes into current event. In terms of managing disasters, again, relevance in terms of your administration, floods होंगे, cyclones होंगे, NDMA guidelines होंगी, early warning systems होंगे. That is the idea of you reading about earthquakes, tsunamis, all of these natural calamities. Industrial location, economic development, right? For example, SEZs, special economic zones, किस जहाँ बनती हैं, ports. Why again we read about why do we have more ports in the eastern belt as compared to western belt, और vice versa. एक होता है ना independent coast, एक होते हैं coast जहाँ submerged coast. Where can ships land up more? Why? Because ships of course require, maybe there's a depth, right? And if maybe in the eastern coast, what we have seen, the land is somewhere very this, but when it comes to western coast, it is somewhere submerged. So maybe where is an ideal situation, where can we have more ports? In the western part. right? Again, history. Then again, certain history also talks about why certain industries are specifically located in certain parts of the country only. है ना? History in terms of what kind of it is. Maybe the question was asked, how do you see geography as a context in terms of building of maybe society in ancient India? एक question इस तरीके का भी आया था examination में, right? That's why the role of geography comes into picture, right? Then natural resources के बारे में पढ़ना, national mineral policy, coal reforms, groundwater conservation programs, in terms of biodiversity conversation, the whole utility of governance, of reading geography in governance comes in this picture, right? Then some questions कैसे पूछते हैं? Again, in India, which of the following is responsible for maintaining geospatial energy map of India? Basic current event of geography. मैं क्यों ये question लेकर आया? Why? Sometime it is in news and this somewhere comes in reflection of geography current affairs, right? For example, in mains, consequences of landslides, vulnerable tropical cyclones, Himalayan Arctic ecosystems, climate change, right? So these ocean currents, specific keywords of syllabus in terms of mains examination, right? Then, understand, again, this is the way of approaching geography, understand Earth's physical geography in terms of all the phenomena, mountains, waters, river system, deserts, climate zones, natural vegetation, then how they are being distributed, how on these locations the major resources are distributed, where do we find coal fields, where do we find, let's say, iron fields, petroleum fields, right? And that is a major reason that जहाँ ये fields होंगे वहीं location होगी industries की, right? Then maybe how analyze industrial location factors. अगर देखोगे IT क्यों बोलते हैं? Bangalore is an IT hub. What has made it an IT hub? What are the requirements? Then iron, steel in Jharkhand, petrochemicals in Gujarat. Because why? They're naturally found on these areas. Then focus on geophysical phenomena like earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, and again, because why? Because as an administrator in your district, you might be affected due to this phenomena, and you will be in charge of formulating policies, right? Understanding climate change and geography, melting of glaciers, rising sea levels is something very visible these days, right? Then use of maps for better retention. Again, whenever you come across any kind of topics in newspapers, please locate that particular thing from your respective maps. It is very important. Okay? Next, paper number 2, Indian polity and governance. It all starts with maybe different things, right? This is a major thing which you are going to do once you get into governance, right? So starting from why this constitution is what? It is just a rule book. Maybe we talked about, we play a game of football and there are two teams playing a football. One team maybe, and because if two teams are playing football, there has to be a referee. That referee is the government. We are playing the game of democracy as citizens and the referee is the government. What happens if the referee becomes corrupt and it starts supporting one team and not the other team? क्या होगा उस केस में? So there has to be a rule book which talks about how a game has to be played. Where can we say this is going to be a foul? Where can we say this is going to be a foul? It has a rule book. In a similar manner, if the government which we have given the power becomes corrupt and start to take decisions which is not right for the citizens, then there is a rule book. So it defines the power of the government. It defines what government can do, what government cannot do. It tells as citizens what rights do we have, what rights we do not have, what duties we need to perform. Everything, every political institution has a mention in the constitution itself, right? So constitution is just the rule book through which we are going to playing the game of democracy in the country, right? So again, that's how we again, Indian constitution किस तरीके से बना, right? What, where the evolution, how it has happened. Again, the linkage of history comes into picture here. How it has evolved, amendments, significant provisions, and basic structure. What are amendments? The constitution हमारा बोलता है कि we are not too rigid, we are not too flexible. As in, the constitution makers had an idea that it is not something which you are very constant, which should not be rigid. Society will change, the nature of demand will change, and the governance would also change. That's why we see 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. क्या बोला? पंचायत लेकर आए, municipalities लेकर आए. We are going to have one nation, one elections. Are we amending the constitution? Yes. अब, for example, क्या होने वाला है? 29 May we are going to implement one nation, one election. We had general elections in the year 24. And when is the term going to end? In the year 29, technically, right? तब हम मानेंगे one nation election. दिल्ली का election कब हुआ अभी? 25. When is this term going to end? 2030. But one election में क्या बोलता है कि for every state, for every, maybe for the state governments as well as for the union government, we're going to have elections on a very single span of time. How can it happen? So everything has to reset. Some, maybe Karnataka, it is going to end its term maybe in the year 2027. What would happen? Will the new government only reign for 2 years? No. So that's how maybe this amendment is required in the constitution, because where the constitution did not figure that we are going to have the problem of one nation, one election at any point of time. So everything is going to be reset in the year 2029. So for that, some amendments are required in the constitution. For example, initially we talked about reservations, where reservation, the criteria was only socially and economically backward. Sorry, socially and educationally backward. Now with the category coming of economically weaker section, EWS reservation, where again economic factor is also considered as a criteria for giving reservations. It was not there in the constitutions. It was amended. But again, there's a question. Can anything be amended in the constitution? Initially, we gave a fundamental right to property, right? But government wanted to bring in land reforms in our country. What are land reforms? Maybe initially the British time, land were given as a token of maybe what we call as initially Britishers gave land as in some people or some set of people who supported the British government, they gave them maybe as a generosity, they gave them lands. And what we have seen after independence, that certain section of people had huge amount of land, certain people did not had any kind of land. So government wanted, we will distribute the land. Why? Because the people who are having major land holdings, the zamindari system and again whatever system which we had earlier, it is not very true in nature. So again, land has to be distributed equally among all. But the problem which was, again we have given a fundamental right to property. If I am you, I am telling, getting into your property, I am government, I am telling, please leave your property. You will tell me, sir, you have only given the right of fundamental right to property. I will go to Supreme Court and my fundamental cannot be violated in any case. That's why the parliament at that point of time, उन्होंने क्या fundamental right को हटा दिया. They make it a legal right, a constitutional right. Then it was challenged. Can parliament take away or amend anything in the constitution? In the very famous case of Keshav Gharti, it was decided that there is a basic structure. The basic philosophy of the constitution cannot be compromised at any instance. That's how maybe you will read about constitution all. In that constitution, we have discussed what is the working of the Indian constitution. For example, how does it function? If I am a teacher, if I teach all the subjects, will it decrease or increase my efficiency? Of course, decrease. In a similar manner, it was decided that the government at one level cannot perform all the functions. So we came with the concept of what we call as federalism. The powers were distributed between the center and the states. And we have went for a further division, what we call as self-government, the local governments. So devolution of power. So which again, if I have divided the powers, I have to define the boundaries as well, right? In the constitution, it has been mentioned 3 lists: union list, state list, concurrent list. Union can make the laws, state can make the laws, in a similarly vice versa, right? Then we have the idea of what we call as bicameralism. What is bicameralism? Idea of having 2 houses, the upper house and the lower house. Just like we have a setup, maybe the whole state is divided into 3 organs. One is executive, legislature and judiciary. What is the task of executive? Legislature make the laws, executive implements the laws, and judiciary decides whether the law which is being made is right or wrong. And what is the basis? Who it will refer to? The constitution. That is rule book, right? And then again, maybe if there's a tussle, if there is any dispute, who we can go to? The judiciary. So just like state has 3 organs, in the central government has 3 organs, maybe the parliament, the executive and the judiciary, right? Same setup happens at state as well, right? Just like we have maybe legislature or parliament there, we have state legislatures here, right? So state legislatures will make laws on state list, parliament will make laws on the union list. And every functioning of the body, anything, any topic, maybe UPSC, it's a constitutional body. Everything, their working, their mandate, election commission, everything has been mentioned in the constitution itself. How the 3 organs will work together, maybe we have an idea of what we call as independent and integrated judiciary. Just like we have separation in terms of powers when it comes to union and state level in the two organs, that is executive and legislature, we have a concept of integrated judiciary altogether. That's where we see everything. So starting from this to everything, what has been mentioned here is something which we are going to do once we get into administration. So we need to have a strong hold that how is the political system of the country functioning. What kind of mechanisms do we follow? What kind of bodies do we have? What kind of rights do we have? What kind of policy decision making? How maybe different bodies, different organs of the government is going to affect which part of society? That is what I'm going to read. एक topic यहाँ भी है, comparison of Indian Constitution scheme with that of other countries. So there have been no other countries. How can we understand which other countries we are talking about? Because क्या पूछा है यहाँ पर? Comparison of Indian Constitution scheme with that of other countries. Very good. So Indian Constitution is inspired by some of the constitutions, majorly from the Constitution of where? Britain. Why? Because technically, logically क्या बोलती है? Britain ही हमारी country थी ना for the last maybe couple of 200 years, 250 years. So again, majorly from UK. Then we have taken some principles from US because the biggest democracy. We have taken some principles from South Africa. Why? Because the conditions were somewhere similar in South Africa as well. Major democracy again is France, where again we have taken some principles of France as well, right? So these are the few countries which again, अब इसको identify करने के लिए we need to read the syllabus and we need to analyze the previous year questions. कि इसमें what is the boundary? There are multiple countries. Do I need to compare Indian Constitution with other countries? No. Comparison कहाँ से करना है? Indian Constitution से. So firstly, we need to understand Indian Constitution and then we can compare how it is different from other countries, right? Similarly, अब वही parliaments, legislature क्या functioning है, everything has mentioned here. Organization of executive judiciary, representations of people act. Again, सिर्फ बोला है silent. What is representation of people act? It talks about elections. How political parties are framed, how political parties can maybe become a national party, a state party, right? Everything. Model code of conduct, everything about elections has been mentioned in what? The Representations of People Act, right? Then appointment, we read about a lot of constitutional posts in terms of what? UPSC, we read about maybe National Commission for SC, STs, right? Election Commission, right? Then statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies, government policies in terms of what? Government schemes निकालती हैं. Then there are bodies like NGOs, self-help groups, then schemes of the government regarding what? Vulnerable sections of society. So all of these comprises the syllabus of polity, right? How we're supposed to read this? Again, paper 2 में mains में basically cover होता है in terms of constitution, governance, public policy, institutions and welfare schemes, right? Prelims with the nature of questions basically tests your understanding of constitutional provisions, right? They have asked questions, difference between rights and duties. Where concepts, if आपको पता है कि rights क्या हैं, duties क्या है, you can solve those questions, right? Amendments क्या हैं, judicial interpretations क्या है, maybe important Supreme Court judgments. They have given them as the following. They have given few amendments and few provisions which are amended, and they have told you as the following, right? Then in terms of statutory bodies, what are statutory bodies? Some bodies which have been mentioned in the constitutions are called as constitutional bodies. Some bodies which have a mandate or backing of a statute or a law. That is a statutory body, right? Then ऐसे में भी इसका use है in terms of interview, yes, because the whole idea of governance, whole idea of democracy revolves around this particular topic. That's how you need to see things. How should we understand again in terms of constitution as a foundation of governance, federalism and decentralization, separation of powers, policy formulations, then again welfare development policies, in terms of not just initiatives of government in terms of education, health, gender equality, socio-economic inclusions, Niti Aayog, election commission, everything, मतलब everything जो core fundamental है ना, that revolves around the idea of having good knowledge of the constitution and the political functioning of the government of the country, which is you are going to be a part of, right? Then questions, again ministries हैं, मतलब again of course role of governance, कि कितने type के ministries होते हैं, union government, state government. Then in terms of elections in India, Again, we have seen Representation of People Act directly from the syllabus itself topic. Mains में question में basic structure doctrine, right? Talking about Indian Parliament with that of US. Again, comparison of Indian Constitution with different other countries. So these are the other countries. Discuss the role of pressure groups in democracy. Finance Commission, again a constitutional body in the setup of what? Fiscal federalism, right? So you need to understand from Regulating Act till the present amendments, you need to see it in terms of chronology, constitutional provisions, fundamental rights hoti hain, DPSPs, federal. What are rights first of all? What are rights? What are natural rights? Very good. For example, right over your own body. It's a natural right. You can speak. That's a natural right. Do we have a right of our own? Do women have a right to their own body in Afghanistan? No. So some rights, though they're natural rights, it requires protection so that someone cannot violate it, right? So again, with the level of protection, the nature of rights changes. Some rights which are very protected, and they have mentioned part 3 of the Constitution that we call as fundamental rights. Some rights which have been given a constitutional status, they have been mentioned in the text of Constitution but not given the status of fundamental rights. Those rights are called as constitutional rights. Some rights are not mentioned in the Constitution, some law has given at those rights. These are called as what? Statutory rights or legal rights. That's the classification, right? That's how we will need to see things, how are rights, DPSPs, federal structure, then functioning of the government, kaise function karti hai, right? Then judiciary, judicial bodies, then welfare schemes, policies, comparison of other countries, then updated in terms of current affairs, important Supreme Court judgments, constitutional amendments, and governance issues happening around the country. That is your basis of reading it in terms of polity preparation, right? Then this topic pertains to which subject? Issues relating to development and management of social sector services in health, education, human resources. Issues relating to poverty and hunger. एक topic आता है paper 2 में, what we call as social justice. What is justice? न्याय. And if we attach a word social there, justice on what parameters? Certain social parameters. For example, hunger, poverty, education, health, human resources. So if policies, laws, if you're going to implement, you need to understand the idea of having social justice. What is the requirement of it in the society context, right? So again, it is covering paper 2 and 3 specifically, healthcare, education, resource development, poverty, hunger, policy interventions, right? In prelims, UPSC tests knowledge of government schemes. अब होता है ना एक टॉपिक आते हैं गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स पढ़ना है प्रीलिम्स में. स्कीम्स किसके अराउंड आती है? मेजरली अराउंड सर्टेन सोशल these parameters, right? Social economic indicators, reports, institutions. There are different institutions. Reports आती है, global gender gap report, है ना? So ये कहाँ topic important? Yes, it pertains to the topic of social justice, right? Essential again for essay and for your interview preparation as well, right? So few examples किस तरीके से governance में link करते हैं. For example, National Health Mission, the idea of Ayushman Bharat, Jan Aushadhi Yojana, and their challenges in implementation, all leading to the idea of having social justice. आयुष्मान भारत में क्या बोलते हैं? नेशनल हेल्थ मिशन क्यों आया? हेल्थ इज अ फैक्टर. हमने देखा था टॉपिक हेल्थ एजुकेशन, द न्यू आइडिया ऑफ व्हाट वी कॉल एज न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी, अगेन द आइडिया ऑफ हैविंग सोशल जस्टिस, राइट? सो अगेन एजुकेशन में भी देखा हमने क्या, न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी, स्किल इंडिया मिशन, डिजिटल यूनिवर्सिटी, राइट? इन टर्म्स ऑफ पॉवर्टी, पीडीएस स्कीम, गरीब कल्याण योजना, मिड डे मील स्कीम्स, पोषण अभियान योजना, फूड सिक्योरिटी इश्यूज, पॉलिसी इंप्लीमेंटेशन, लैक ऑफ, अगेन अब इन सब पॉलिसीज में इश्यूज क्या आता है गवर्नेंस में? लैक ऑफ फंड्स, फंडिंग नहीं है, करप्शन है, ब्यूरोक्रेटिक इनएफिशिएंसीज है, इंटर स्टेट डिस्पैरिटीज है. इसी का सोल्यूशन आएगा आपका नेक्स्ट टॉपिक ऑफ सिलेबस, दैट इज गवर्नेंस, राइट? देन रोल ऑफ इंटरनेशनल रिपोर्ट्स, एंड दिस इज अगेन होता है ना ग्लोबल हंगर गैप रिपोर्ट, ग्लोबल ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट इंडेक्स, एजुकेशन इंडेक्स विच कंपेयर्स इंडिया विथ द अदर कंट्रीज, है ना? तब इट गिव्स अस अ क्राइटेरिया और गिव्स अस स्कोप ऑफ मेजरमेंट कि हाउ फार वी आर देयर फ्रॉम द डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज एंड हाउ वी नीड टू अचीव दैट और अपग्रेड दैट स्पॉट, राइट? Social sector reforms focus on gender budgeting, women's empowerment, marginalized communities, and access to social services, right? Questions? In the context of social sector development in India, consider the following: National Health Mission, Poshan Abhiyan, ये मिशन क्या पूछा गया है? Which of the above are aimed at improving nutritional outcomes? Again, the idea of having public health, social justice. Then again, National Health Mission पे मेंस पे क्वेश्चन है, न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी है, उस पे क्वेश्चन आ गए, राइट? सो समवेयर around these particular topics, if some themes are in news, it becomes a question in their prelims or the mains examination, right? So again, sustainable development goals, then National Food Security Act, basic things. Again, yes, read scheme wise, analyze the reports. Whenever you come across in newspapers, any reports, any indices, attach. Again, देखो ये भी अंडरस्टैंड करना बहुत जरूरी है कि कोई भी स्कीम, कोई भी रिपोर्ट, कोई भी इंडेक्स हम पढ़ते हैं, whenever we reading coming across those reports, indices, events, we need to understand where I can use those reports, indices in my answer writing, how a question could be framed in prelims from that particular report, indices. That is my understanding of reading the respective current events, right? Then again, yes, role of institutions, WHO, UNICEF, UNESCO, Niti Aayog. Then impact of globalization on social development, current affairs, linkage. That's how you need to see social justice wala part. Then coming to, again, this is the topic of governance, right? So again, what do we require in governance? हमने देखा ना कि क्या हुआ पहले? Citizens, there was no government, we created a government. Then we had a problem, what? What if the government become corrupt? Then we make what? The rule book, that is constitution. Then अब सबको चलाने के लिए we need people and there has to be a procedure, and the procedure of running the country is called governance. There are certain principles which we need to follow in the governance process to make it more effective and efficient. So what are those principles? Governance में transparency, accountability, e-governance, models of successes, limitations, potentials, citizens charters, transparency, accountability, other measures, role of civil services in democracy. है ना? That is how the idea of governance should be read upon, right? So maybe majorly again कहाँ important है paper 2 में, right? कैसे questions आते हैं prelims में? Government initiatives they ask you, right? In terms of a few schemes, digital governance पे they ask you questions. Recently, government is going for digitalization of land records. Why? Government is going for digitalization of land records. The major problem or the एक प्रॉब्लम है ना जुडिशरी, सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्या है? व्हाट इज द मेजर प्रॉब्लम ऑफ जुडिशरी? पेंडेंसी ऑफ केसेस. एंड इफ यू सी, मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द केसेस आर ड्यू टू व्हाट? ऑन द व्हाट बेसिस? वेरी गुड. द मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द इश्यूज आर लैंड डिस्प्यूट इश्यूज. व्हाई? बिकॉज वी हैव नो क्लैरिटी किसका लैंड क्या है. And that's why the government is going for what we call as digitalization of land records. That's how you need to interlink with the syllabus, right? So whenever you come across any news in newspapers, you need to first of all understand ki which part of syllabus, which paper of syllabus this news pertains to. A particular news can be related to many topics. Manipur issue हुआ था ना? It can be linked to all 4 GS papers. For example, women's rights were violated, paper 1 का issue. There was a political governance का failure, paper 2 का question. We are going to impose president's rule, governance का questions. Paper number 3, we read about maybe economic implications of maybe having maybe of riots or maybe issues over there. Then we read about security challenges, border management. Manipur shares a border with Myanmar. Again, border management, security issue. Then it is something, if you are a DM, if you are a IPS officer posted in that police, how will you have managed that situation? कहाँ लिखोगे इसका ऐसा आंसर्स? केस स्टडीज. सो अगेन, in the context of एक topic को do not see as one subject, read it overall. That is my idea of telling you this, right? Then in terms of governance में, yes, role of transparency in governance, accountability, efficiency, participation, rule of law. This everything you are going to read. I'm just giving you an overview कि this is how you need to understand. कुछ भी चीज़ें आपको समझ में नहीं आ रही कि किस टॉपिक में है, this gives you a viewpoint कि this is where topics around this, it is coming in the vicinity of the topic of governance, right? E-governance services, example Aadhaar, again example of e-governance, right? Umang scheme, MyGov platform, JAM Trinity Jan Dhan Yojana, right? Strengthening transparency किस तरीके से आ रहा है? Transparency कैसे ला रही government? Right to Information Act, right? In terms of Lokpal, social audit, citizen charters. Challenges क्या governance में? Bureaucratic inefficiency, corruption, red tapeism, right? Lack of data security. So again, these are challenges. How we are tackling this, that has to be read. Then civil services as backbone of democracy, right of role in policy formulation. आप क्या करोगे? You are the permanent branch of executive. State के 3 organs है ना, executive, legislature, judiciary. Executive again is of 2 types, permanent and temporary. Temporary, the people who get elected for 5 years and again their term is completed. You are the ones who are going to be the permanent branch of the government or the executive, right? So again, you have a very important role in terms of policy formulation. Public administration. Public administration किसका करोगे? Public, so public administration, crisis management and maintaining law and order. So for that, you need to have a knowledge of governance principles. That is related to governance as far as you are concerned, right? Questions, generally they ask scheme based questions. E-governance है, क्या चीजें हैं, right? Then they have a citizens charter, again a question, क्या principles objectives होती हैं citizens charters की, right? Then mains में we have seen again topics around those keywords of the syllabus itself. So if you have understood the keywords, you can solve the answer, any question of the examination. Because people usually fail to understand question आ कहाँ से रहा है. If you see, 80% of the questions are directly from the keywords of the question only. So again, if you have understood the syllabus, if you have read things around that syllabus subtopic, you will be in a position to answer any questions which are there. Because why? Syllabus का मतलब क्या है कि यूपीएससी ने ये बता दिया कि इसी से हम क्वेश्चंस पूछेंगे. So I need to have a hold on every subtopic of syllabus. I need to understand it, which topic pertains to which subject and how I can interpret that particular topic in terms of career in civil services, right? That is you need to understand. Then this is again governance models पढ़ना है आपको. This is where again once you start reading governance, this should be the approach. Focus on in governance success challenges, right? Understand the role of civil services, bureaucratic क्या होती है, कैसे efficiency है, analyzing government transparency measures, RTI Act, local, again whatever we have discussed. Then current events में e-governance initiative सरकार क्या लेकर आ रही है in terms of digital governance and civil services reforms. एक आया है मिशन कर्म योगी. क्या है मिशन कर्म योगी? It is an example of civil service reforms. Example, yes, how sir? Yes. Skill development, how? Usually what happens, once people enter administration, you will all go to Labasna for 2-year training and your training stops here. Government is telling you no, training should not be restricted only at the beginning of services. Training should be going around the way you are progressing in your services. That is all round, maybe the continuity of maybe your training that is being talked in Mission Karam Yogi. Government works in silos department, as in एक ministry है that is working separately. One ministry, all the ministries are working separately. But the idea is to integration among all the ministries. That is being talked in Mission Karam Yogi. So again, civil services reforms. So एक topic news का था, आपको इससे interlink करना है कि किस topic of syllabus से fit करता है. That is an idea how you should identify the current events. Then again, international relations, where again we are going to read about India and its neighborhood relations. Then bilateral relations with respect to India and global groupings. For example, what are the global groupings? ASEAN, G20, BIMSTEC. So all of these summits happens, right? So we need to understand what is the mandate. Why a particular body is constituted, what is its purpose, what are the members, right? Where is headquarters? Then effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interests, Indian diaspora. What are Indian diaspora? For example, recently, Mr. Trump got elected as the US president. There again, what we have seen, there are many changes which we have made in administration. Maybe the whole idea of illegal immigration is something which is reflected. So again, developing countries ke, again in terms of India's interests, right? Then important international institutions, agencies for their structure and mandate. We read about many institutions starting from what? सबसे बड़ा event क्या हुआ था World War II के बाद? Which conference? Which led to the creation of IMF, World Bank, Bretton Woods Conference, right? So again, that's how maybe why we are talking about the UN, United Nations, the different bodies in United Nations. Still India has not got a membership, permanent membership in the United Nations Security Council. That has always been a matter of contention, right? You are going to become a service choice hai Indian Foreign Service as well, right? So again, Of course, though it is required, as a civil servant, you need to understand about international relations, but specifically if you're targeting maybe Indian foreign services, you need to have a very good understanding about international relations, right? So how to read that? Basic, किस तरीके से कहाँ link है? Paper 2 में, prelims में, they ask questions on international organizations, they ask questions on treaties, they ask questions on India's global commitments, right? Essential for again essay and your interview as well, foreign policy, regional security issues, right? That's how it is. Then in terms of linking it with current events or administration, India's neighborhood first policy. India क्या बोलती है? Neighborhood is my first priority in terms of example, SAARC के ties, BIMSTEC, ASEAN, Quad and Indo-Pacific strategy, right? Then trade and economic policy, RCEP, where again certain global institutions which talks about trade and economic diplomacy. WTO, G20, BRICS, free trade agreements, right? In terms of global policies on India, right? For example, India is having a tense relation with China. There was a Russia-Ukraine war. How did India had a stance on that? How will it impact India's maybe stance in terms of global policies? Right? Then, and their implications in terms of soft power diplomacy, as in the engagement with Indian diaspora. Cultural diplomacy, we talked about cricket, we talked about dance, we talked about music, we talked about painting being used in international diplomacy, right? Global strategic partnerships, right? Then role in the international organizations, talking about UNO, United Nations, WHO, IMF, World Bank, and how India's leadership in global governance, right? That's how we'll be seeing things. Again, questions कैसे आते हैं? G20 BRICS में common members है, right? So again, mandate, aim, purpose, member countries, that should be the fundamental of reading any institutional or foreign body, right? UNSC, Security Councils, India, कितने members हैं, कितने permanent members हैं, basic things. Again, this is how maybe questions around mains are being asked. Indo-Pacific, somewhere in news, a question came up. Somewhere, recently Sri Lanka was in news, a question on Sri Lanka came up, economic crisis in Sri Lanka, because India's is a immediate neighborhood, right? And India participation in global institutions like United Nations and WTO helped in shaping its foreign policy. So basic questions from IR as well, right? Then this is how we need to understand and read, again, global groupings, neighborhoods, followed by India's foreign policy, what kind of ideology do we have, right? And analyze the role of global institutions and current events. For example, bilateral visits. Recently, the Prime Minister went to which country? France, right? So again, this is why India-France relations sometimes can be asked in examination. Hai na? That's how you need to see things. Then economy, again categorized into 3-4 categories. We talked about development. We talked about the idea of sustainable development. We need to measure development. The idea of measuring development is what? With the idea of GDP, right? Then again, a lot of things. Then again, we talked about not just growth. Ab economic growth to India chahti hai na. Again, that's how we see after maybe independence, we went for the idea of planning commission. Every 5-year plan targeted some sectors of economy, right? Every 5-year plan made some strategic changes in the economy, right? How we have seen this, why initially we had an idea of having a self-sustained economy, then what changes what was requirement that India opened the economy in terms of LPG reforms, what happened after that, what was the result of that. That's how you're going to read in terms of economy, right? Something very basic, agar aapko batana chahu, every time you read economics, it should be understood very simple maths. For example, the prices of tomatoes went from 20 rupees per kg now to, let's say, 200 rupees kg in the months of monsoon. So what is the economic term for rise in prices? Inflation. Who can control inflation in the economy? Through RBI, through monetary policy, government through fiscal policy. So let's say how RBI can control inflation in the economy. For example, the price of tomato rose to 200 rupees per kg. You went to market. How can you decide whether I am going to buy a tomato or not at 200 rupees per kg? If you have 200 rupees, of course. If you have money, you are going to buy 200 rupees tomato irrespective of the price it is, right? Now, there are few in monetary policy. What does government or the RBI does? It controls the amount of circulation of money in the economy through certain monetary policy tools. For example, repo rate, bank rate, reverse repo rate, CRR, SLR, you are going to read that, right? For example, generally, very briefly, if I have to discuss, Interest rate today is, let's say, 6%. And now interest rate has risen from 6 to 10%. Will you be encouraged to get money? No. So will the supply of money will decrease with the increase in interest rate? Agar 6% interest hai, of course circulation of money in the economy will be high. If the interest is raised to 10%, will people be encouraged to take loans? Will money come in the economy? No. So if money is not coming in the economy, will it come to the common purse of a common man? No. So when he is going to a market, he does not have money, he will not buy 200 rupees kg tomatoes. So if he is not buying, what would it lead to? Increase in demand or decrease in demand of tomatoes? Decrease in demand of tomatoes. Supply remain the same, demand has decreased. What the supplier or what the seller need to do? He or she will automatically decrease the price of his product, so that again to match it with the demand. And that's how maybe you see maybe how it resulted in forms of control of inflation in the economy. This is a tool which is used by the RBI. So again, government also does this through certain schemes. Agar subsidies de rahi hai, subsidies lead to inflation or deflation? Right? Again, you yourself are in a position. So again, government through fiscal policy, government through monetary, RBI through monetary policy controls the amount of money in the economy. So again, this is how economics has to be done. So here, if we talk about Indian economy issues, planning, mobilization, how it happened, right? Inclusive growth and issues arising out of it, right? Government budgeting, recently budget came, right? Then this is where the idea of development Indian economy comes into picture here. Here we are talking about issues related to agriculture or agricultural economy, right? Starting from cropping patterns, different types of irrigation methods, irrigation storage, transportation and marketing, then issues related to constraints, e-technology needed of farmers. Example of e-technology needed of farmers, soil health card scheme. अब बोलते हैं ना, अब आपसे पूछेंगे, tell me the uses of AI in agriculture. AI is a topic of science and tech, but we need to interlink it with what? Agriculture also. For example, the early warning systems, the monsoon prediction system. ये क्या use कर रही है? AI use कर रही है, data use कर रहे हैं, right? Then in terms of, again, farm subsidies, the whole idea of recently, maybe couple of 3-4 years, what we have seen, there have been demands from farmers regarding giving MSP a legal status. What is MSP, minimum support price? As in what? Avoid the impact of inflation. You have produced 1 kg of rice. Maybe you required maybe 10 rupees of investment, and to produce that 1 kg of rice, you went to market. The price, the demand of rice in market is very less. People are only paying 5 rupees to buy that 1 kg rice of yours. Will it lead to loss of yours or maybe not loss of yours? Now where the government came up ki no, we need to define, as agriculture is a backbone of Indian economy, we need to give some assurity to farmers. That's why government frame up for certain kind of crops, it gives what we call as MSP, minimum support price. As in, there's a formula being derived ki how we can calculate what would the MSP, and it determines that government, this is a base price below which maybe he or the farmer is not supposed to sell that particular crop. Technically ऐसा होता नहीं है, but again this is a benchmark, right? But now what they're demanding, sir, give it the legal status. As in, if I am going to you, you are obligated to buy all my produce. So this is somewhere a matter of contention now. So again आपसे पूछेंगे, sir and ma'am, you being policy makers, what strategy, what plan do you have? What I feel specifically, there has to be a mix of both. Give them a legal status, ki some 30-40% we give a legal status we are going to buy from you, because government itself requires through for the maybe the idea of PDS, public distribution system, it is maybe delivering grains at subsidized price. Government need grains for tackling PDS. So आप कुछ बना दो ऐसा mechanism जहाँ कुछ percentage of something it has to be bought by government, give legal status, some in the open markets, right? That is around it. So again, all issues around maybe again the issues of public distribution system, objective functioning, limitations, revamping, issues of buffer stocks, food security, technology missions, economics of animal rearing. What is animal rearing? Husbandry, animal husbandry, right? Then food processing. What are food processing industries? You eat wheat flour, how it is processed? Through wheat, which is being produced. So again, processed food, there is an industry. That industries talk about food processing industries. The chips you eat is an example of a food processing industries which has processed a raw material. So again, issues around what we call as food processing industry in India, its scope, significance, location, where again determine upstream and downstream requirements, supply chain management, right? Then land reforms, again we have discussed already. Effects of, again, India went for LPG reforms. So again, how it impacted the economy in its structural way. So again, effects of liberalization in Indian economy, changes in industrial policy, and effects on industrial growth. So we have seen that initially government was having a full control over certain industries. Right now it has gone for the idea of what we call as disinvestment, है ना, जहाँ की कुछ sectors, अब defense में भी we have private players, right? Then infrastructure, as we have seen, energy, ports, roadways, railways, etc. So again, anything around infrastructure is coming in newspapers. It is important for you to be read. But recently, a lot of tunnels were inaugurated by Honorable Prime Minister, right? It is important. Why? Because why is it important for you to be read? In terms of connectivity issues, in terms of a lot of things, in terms of administration, right? Then investment models, again there are different kind of models through which government invests in the economy. PPP models, public private partnership, right? There are different models. रोड भी कैसे बनते हैं, हाईवेज बन गए, right? EPC मॉडल, जहाँ की हम गवर्नमेंट से पैसे दे रही है, और एक मॉडल्स होते हैं जहाँ सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट आइडियाज ले रही है, right? A different kind of models, how it is being done. That's a part of economy. Majorly in paper 3, in prelims, they ask questions around maybe economic indicators, government schemes, policies, budgetary allocations, right? And this is where the role of your economic survey and budget comes into picture. है ना? These two important. अब data कहाँ से लाओगे? GDP कितनी है? GDP कितनी grow हुई है? किस industry में किस contribution है? Industry में, let's say, what is the contribution of defense in the GDP of the country? Where do you see these trends? In the economic survey. Where do you see budgetary allocations? What kind of budget is government making? It tells us what is the mindset of government. है ना? That's how we do see. Then again, essay, and this is how you can interlink it in terms of essay and interview preparation, right? Then it should be started from, let's say, economic planning and resource mobilization with the role of Niti Aayog, because planning commission has been scrapped off. Then RBI, SEBI, Ministry of Finance in planning and policy implementation. Inclusive growth in terms of programs like Skill India Mission, Make in India, Startup India, MSME development. MSMEs, medium sector and micro. MSME. What is MSME? Micro, small and medium enterprises, right? Then government budgeting and fiscal management, understanding. Again, हम बोलते हैं ना कि हमारे पास अब सरकार का पैसा कहाँ से आती है? Through two ways: tax revenues, non-tax revenues. What are tax revenues? GST and income tax and corporation tax. So again, it earns certain amount of money and it spends certain amount of money. The difference between these two is what? अगर कमाई कम है और खर्चे ज़्यादा हैं, तो will it call a deficit or a surplus? है ना? So again we see the idea, पढ़ते हो ना, fiscal deficit, यही होता है वो, है ना? That's how things make it very simpler when you're reading it, right? Then अगर मान लो, if what happens if government has less earning and more spending, then what would happen? कैसे sustain कैसे होगा फिर? हाँ, very good, borrow. Then we have an idea of what we call as external commercial borrowings, right? That's how we need to see things. Some borrowings are supposed to be paid back. Some are maybe grants which are being given to us. This need not be paid back. Non-debt, debt. Yeah, that's how we're going to read it, right? Then agriculture में and food security में policy related to MSPs, public distribution system, buffer stock, ENAM, organic farming, and somewhere now we have come up with the concept of what we call as superfoods or millets. And again a part of economy, right? Industrial growth and infrastructure development in terms of FDI, FPIs, roadways, ports, railways, smart cities, है ना, कुछ भी बन रहा है, it is coming under the idea of which subject? Infrastructure development in economics. Investment models and economic reforms, PPP, FDI, disinvestment strategies, role of globalization, right? Questions कैसे आते हैं? With reference to Indian economy, again trend, capital allowed convertibility, currency, basic technical terms है. So basic questions आते हैं prelims में regarding this, and prelims में again fertilizer subsidy, agriculture based questions कैसे आते हैं कि green box subsidies, W2O, again कहाँ पढ़ोगे आप W2O को? दो जगह, एक पढ़ोगे पेपर 2 में इन इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस पे, एक पढ़ोगे इकोनॉमी इन टर्म्स ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर, है ना. दिस हैज अ मेजर पॉइंट ऑफ डिस्कशन with respect to World Trade Organization, with the idea of Indian government giving subsidies, right? Then again उसी सब टॉपिक्स के अराउंड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर था, उसके अराउंड क्वेश्चन, राइट. हाउ सब्सिडीज थे in terms of agriculture, there's a question. Globalization, liberalization, again on employment trends, right? That's how we need to see this. Food processing industries, a question on that. So questions कहाँ आ रहे हैं, कहाँ से आ रहे हैं? Everything from the theme. So if you have a hold on that particular theme, if you have read current events around particular theme, then you will be in a better position to answer all of these questions, right? Then again, this is how models को पढ़ना है, budgeting पढ़नी है, trends को देखने हैं in terms of MSPs, understanding infrastructure development, all of these we have discussed, right? That's how to see things. Now science and technology, again you need not to become scientist or an engineer when you're reading these topics. You are going to understand that we are reading this for helping us in civil services. How the role of technology would come up in you being in civil services. For example, एक आता है Indian Defence IDAS services, है ना. For example, you will be posted in one of the space departments of the government as a secretary. How we will frame policies. हम गए चंद्रयान में, right? So again, it has maybe for space, let's say if you are an Indian Revenue Service officer, who prepares budget? These Indian Revenue Service officers, the finance secretaries, how do they consider that which sector has to give which amount of budget, right? So sectors का knowledge होना चाहिए आपको, different sectors का. That's why the role of technology will also be a sector in economy. We talked about AI in governance. Again, a use of technology in governance, right? So again, science and technology developments and their application effects in everyday life. Right? What is the significance of everyday life? Because generally how it's affecting people, that is has to be read from a civil services point of view. Achievements of Indians in science and technology, indigenization of technology and developing new technology, basic thing. Then again, देखो हर जगह लिखा हुआ government strives to have a workforce balance. Then awareness in the fields of IT, information technology, then space, computers, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and issues related to intellectual property rights. Again, we'll discuss how to read that. Paper 3 का है, where again in mains, technological advancements, innovations, space and developments kind of questions are being asked, specifically biotech and IPR issues. Then prelims पे they ask questions on recent scientific developments. For example, they ask you cryptocurrency is in news. It is related to which technology? Blockchain technology. ऐसे ही पूछते हैं. Qubit is a game. Qubit is launched by Google in context of which thing? Supercomputing, है ना? So this is how they ask questions. Some new thing in news, they ask the context. जो आपको आप उसके लिए आप क्रिप्टोकरेंसी पढ़ना जरूरी नहीं है, आपको ब्लॉकचेन जानना जरूरी नहीं है. You need to have a basic understanding, right? Then Indian space missions, government technology initiatives. Then essential again in terms of essay, of course, AI in governance, India's role in global technology, digital revolution. These are the topics where again you can inculcate maybe a technological input to your essay. Then again in interview, again they ask questions in terms of this technology as well. Then how should we read this? E-governance and AI in administration. Of course, the use of AI. Does India has its own cryptocurrency? RBI has launched anything? Central currency? Central digital currency? Right? Again, there could be a question again, if cryptocurrency is being discussed so much, at some point of time Supreme Court, the government banned it. Then Supreme Court ने बोला कि नहीं, banning नहीं कर सकते इसकी. So again, the government telling we are not able to regulate it. If you're not able to regulate it, there is an idea of what we call as corruption, money laundering being happened to these cryptocurrencies. A lot of problems. आपको उसके बारे में knowledge होना चाहिए ना. अब सरकार cryptocurrency क्यों ban करना चाह रही है? क्या reasons है उसके? So that is a fundamental which I need to read from a civil servant perspective when it comes to cryptocurrency. Not beyond that. कि maths के क्या model होते हैं वो जानना जरूरी नहीं है आपको. Right? Then space technology, again ISRO satellite भेज रही है, programs, Gaganyaan, defense space, right? Then in terms of biotech and healthcare, agriculture innovations like CSP, gene therapy, GM crops, vaccine development. In COVID-19, we saw the idea of what we call as vaccine development. IT, robotics, again AI in industries, economic growth, indigenization of technology in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, DRDO's role in defense technology, where again we are self-sustaining or self-indigenizing all the Indian technology. Then IPR issues in terms of, again, कहाँ आते हैं GI tags, patents, in terms of copyrights, in terms of geographical indicators, right? Questions, नेशनल क्वांटम मिशन किस तरीके से न्यूज़ में था, उससे पूछेंगे क्वेश्चंस, राइट? देन 5G टेक्नोलॉजी आई 2021 में, जब प्राइम मिनिस्टर साहब ने इसे बोला कि अक्रॉस 28 स्टेट्स एंड 8 यूटीज वी आर गोइंग टू हैव 5G, क्वेश्चन केम इन 21, राइट? देन in terms of mains, again artificial intelligence in public administration, common thing जो न्यूज़ में चल रहा है उसी से अराउंड दे आस्क क्वेश्चंस. IPR issues, space technology, then again biotechnology in Indian agriculture, basic concepts. So this is how you need to understand. Recent innovations पढ़ना है, Indian achievements जो trend में चल रही है उनको देखना है, followed by societal linkage in terms of role of technology in employment, automation and digital economy, right? Again, अगर आपसे पूछूं मैं, can we link the problem of women's safety with technology? Can we link the problem of traffic management with technology? है ना? That's how you need to see things. कि some social problems can be solved with the problem with the integration of technology as well. आपके answers को आप multi-dimensional answers कैसे बना सकते हो? आपको सोचना है जितने papers हैं, जितने topics हैं ना, economic, social, political, legal, environmental, historical, cultural, एक topic को 10 एंगल से सोचो. You'll get at least 8 points. And these 8 points, if you write in answers, that is going to maybe give a diversified answers to your answer. And of course, it will fetch you more marks as compared to a person who has given only 1 angle or 2 angle to his or her answer. That's the utility of understanding the context. Right? Again, in terms of current affairs, scientific discoveries हो रही हैं, government initiatives हो रहे हैं, global technology trends हो रहे हैं, ये current events से question आते हैं in terms of prelims. Right? Now, lastly, again, disaster management. Of course, NDA में guidelines, again, you read about a lot of disasters. उसके management, maybe if you are posted in a district where again there are a lot of disasters happening, for example, in the cases of Odisha, it's a state where again it's disaster prone many a times. Andhra Pradesh, cyclones hit, right? So again, in terms of this, you need to understand disaster management. Again, role of NDMA, SDMAs, state NDRF, local governments in disaster risk reduction. Use of technology in disaster management in terms of international cooperation agreements, Sendai framework, Paris agreement, Kyoto protocol, right? These all things. Disaster resilience structure. So again, this is how maybe you understand कि किस तरीके से role of disaster management in you as a governance process, right? These are the areas. Questions. Again, हमने देखा था Sendai framework. Question आ गया. Why? It was in news. Then in terms of tsunami warning system, what has been India being done in terms of disaster management? Tsunami is again a geographical phenomena as well as a disaster at the same time. Again, how can India enhance disaster resilience through early warning systems, technological interventions? Recently, today we faced an issue, है ना? Then evaluate India's preparedness to handle cyclones, floods, earthquakes, suggest ways to improve disaster resilience. Why? Because everything ये आप as administrators को face करोगे. That's why you're reading these things, right? Then this is how we have already discussed किस तरीके से पढ़ना है, technology integration, institutional frameworks, types, and international agreements and current events have been happening around recent disasters, right? Then internal security, linkages between development and extremism, role of external state and non-state actors in creating challenges to internal security. What are state and non-state actors? अब पाकिस्तान में कभी भी बोला जाता है कि it is state funded terrorism. Some people say it is state funded. What is state funded? But of course it is Pakistan does not go by this notion. But again, that is the idea of state funded, not state funded institutions. In India, we have internal challenges or extremism in terms of Naxalism. Right? Red corridor regions होते हैं हमारे in the cases of Jharkhand, Arunachal Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh and Chhattisgarh and parts of Odisha as well. Right? Then again, challenges to internal security through communication networks. देखते हो ना cyber attacks कभी-कभी होता है. Some malwares, some spywares come in newspapers. Again, it's an impact on communication technology. Then role of media and social media networking in sites in internal security challenges. For example, social media. आज के डेट में initially maybe traditionally 20 years back, what did we had? Medium of communication was newspapers only. Before telephones I'm talking about. If some news has to spread, it led a lot of time. But now, the click of a post, circulate. And that's where maybe social media and its implications in terms of security. Maybe very recently, 5 years back, we had Citizenship Amendment Act, which has came. है ना कि citizenship किसको मिलेगी किसको नहीं मिलेगी. A lot of debate, a lot of protests around the country. है ना, that's how maybe you can see that. Right. Then basics of cyber security and money laundering and its prevention. Then security challenges and their management in kaha? Border areas. What are challenges border areas we face? Border infiltration, drug issue, then maybe idea of money laundering, counterfeit currency, fake currencies, है ना, ये सब कहाँ से हो रही है? बॉर्डर से पर्कुलेट होती है. अगेन मैनेजमेंट ऑफ बॉर्डर एंड इश्यूज एट द बॉर्डर, राइट. Then various security forces and their agencies and the mandate. For example, we talk about a lot of security agencies, for example CISF, BSF, है ना. So again इन agencies के बारे में हम पढ़ते हैं, इनके reforms कहला सकते हैं. That is being read in the topic of internal security. Very briefly, paper 3 में आता है, prelims में ask questions on security agencies, cyber laws, counter-terrorism measures, money laundering regulations, right? Then essay में again an interview you can integrate in terms of the subject core syllabus, right? How in governance, again development versus extremism. अब problem क्या है nexalism का? Government चाह रही वहाँ development हो, वो बोलते हैं कि नहीं करो. That's a major tussle. So again development versus extremism. Then again role of external non-state actors, state-sponsored terrorism, role of Pakistan in Kashmir militancy, the whole debate around POK region. China's influence in Northeast, we have seen. Then ISI's infiltration attempts, we have seen with the Pulwama attack and every attack, Uri attack, right? Then cyber security and digital threats in terms of dark web, phishing attacks, hacking, data leaks, social media misinformation, figures spyware controversy. These are the topics इसके around security challenges होती हैं. Money laundering issues, for example, the role of, आजकल देख रहे हो ना, many a times the ED or Enforcement Directorate has maybe increased its reach in terms of money laundering, where again many huge amount of currencies are being maybe found out in maybe many cases. ED is being questioning many authorities, many personalities, right? Maybe in terms of linking it with the role of what we call as money laundering, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, shell companies, Hawala networks, right? Border and security organizations in terms of India, Pakistan, India, China, India, Myanmar, India, Bangladesh, where again the border has been a matter of contention, right? Then security forces, again CAPF, National NIA, IB, RAW, NSG and Assam Rifles ensuring national security. ये आपके अराउंड क्या है, किस टॉपिक्स? लिंकेज इन टर्म्स ऑफ गवर्नेंस. क्वेश्चन में साइबर सिक्योरिटी पे क्वेश्चंस आएंगे इस तरीके से, राइट? दे आस्क यू क्वेश्चंस व्हिच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग आर कंसिडर्ड सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट्स टू इंडियाज इंटरनल स्टेबिलिटी. बेसिक क्वेश्चंस ऑन सिक्योरिटी, right? Same, extremism, cyber security, all the keywords, intelligence agencies, then money laundering. कहाँ से आए questions? Keywords, right? Then this is how you prepare, study internal security challenges. हमारी country में क्या है? Naxalism, terrorism, cyber threats, border security, actors we have discussed. Then in terms of measures, क्या ले रही है Indian government? What kind of policies we are making to tackle those situations? Then final security, then agencies and their mandate, and then current affairs, right? Then just more 10 minutes and we are done with this. Last paper, that is ethics, integrity, and aptitude. It has been very recently introduced in the year 2013. Why? Because a person, in order to become a good administrator, he need to have basic ethical values. And if you see, there are two types of questions are being asked. One is theoretical questions and one is case studies. If you see very clearly what they have mentioned, case studies का approach कैसे करना है? How should we approach case studies? They have mentioned very clearly. The paper will include questions to test candidates' attitude and approach to issues relating to integrity, probity in public life, and his problem-solving approach to various issues and conflicts faced by him dealing with society. जितनी चीजें पढ़ी हमने, अब आप जब रियल लाइफ में एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर बन जाओगे, आपको कुछ एथिकल डिलेमास आएंगे, है ना? उसको आप कैसे टैकल करोगे, वो सिखाता है आपको एथिक्स, इंटीग्रिटी एंड एप्टीट्यूड पेपर. फिर बोलेंगे कि हम आपको यहाँ तक नहीं छोड़ेंगे, हम आपको ये भी बोलेंगे कि आप बन जाओ सिविल सर्वेंट, आप बन जाओ आईएएस ऑफिसर, आप बन जाओ आईपीएस ऑफिसर, एंड वी गिव यू अ केस स्टडी, देन यू सॉल्व इट। होता ना कि हाउ यू इंटेलिंग इट फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री, इकोनॉमी, सोसाइटी, सब कुछ पढ़ के जब आप इम्प्लीमेंट के बारे में आए, वो भी गाइड कर रही है आपको सिलेबस, है ना। सो ये बोलते हैं क्वेश्चंस में यूटिलाइज द केस, क्वेश्चनर्स में यूटिलाइज केस स्टडीज अप्रोच टू डिटरमाइन दीज एस्पेक्ट्स, द फॉलोइंग ब्रॉड एरियाज हैव बीन कवर्ड। एक तरीके से क्या क्या एथिक्स से पढ़ते हैं, बेसिक फिलोसफीज, मे बी वी टॉक अबाउट व्हाट इज ऑनेस्टी, व्हाट इज ऑनेस्टी, truthfulness is honesty, what is integrity, doing the right thing even if no one is watching you. Why we are teaching you to become emotionally intelligent, because at situations, मान लीजिए आप एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट में पोस्टेड हैं, आप उस स्टेट से बिलोंग करते हैं, एंड अगेन देयर इज इन स्लम विच इज एन एरिया, एंड अगेन फॉर स्लम रिहैबिलिटेशन, डेवलपमेंट ऑफ दैट एरिया, यू नीड टू रिलोकेट दैट स्लम। पीपल स्टार्ट आस्किंग यू क्वेश्चंस कि आपके पास एक एथिकल डिलेमा आएगा कि व्हाई आई एम maybe taking out someone from their place which they have stayed for maybe last 2 decades, 3 decades, right? So again, at point of time, your emotions may overpower your decision making, and that's where a civil servant need to be emotionally intelligent, right? And again, all the basic phenomena what we're going to read in ethics is something which will help you in terms of whenever you are going to implement all those things which you have read in syllabus in terms of actual governance policy. Any ethical considerations, any ethical dilemmas you face, this subject or they'll teach you how to deal with that particular case, right? And that's where the reading of newspapers comes into picture. Abhi recently, maybe we talk about protests, farmers protest. You are an IPS officer, you are the law in charge of that district. How will you manage that protest? Up they tell you you are an SP and they ask you question. So you are not an SP, you are still aspiring for the examination, that's why you're writing that answer. That's why the role of reading newspapers comes into picture. Okay, whenever you read newspapers, what is the administration doing? How is the government tackling those crisis situations? You need to understand that. That's where you need to come up. So again, in terms of ethics, very last thing, paper 4 में है, in mains में आती है, again it's not a paper in prelims, ethical dilemmas, decision making, governance challenges, accountability they ask, right? In terms of essay and in terms of your interview, you can use it very much in your answers making, because being ethical is what being tested upon, है ना। governance में बोलते हैं कि the administration is corrupt, at the same time we read here about honesty, we read here about integrity, we read here about emotional intelligence. So वो सिर्फ पढ़ना नहीं है, आपको आपकी personality में you have to absorb them. If you want to become good administrators, these ethical situations, these ethical maybe or the themes what we discussed, you need to absorb. Your thinking process should start working around these ethical areas. Then you can become good administrators. That's what UPSC wants. So whenever you're reading ethics, don't read just definition. Just start analyzing कि क्या actual इसका मतलब है. For example, there was a question in UPSC, they asked in the very first year of ethics paper, 16 or 17, I'm assuming, what does happiness means to you? This was the question of 150 words. Yeah, where again they are trying to understand कि for a candidate, how he or she is defining his or her happiness. है ना? That's why they check candidates through these small questions. है ना? आप एक कितना mature answer लिखते हो, आप किस तरीके से you understand it, shows कि whether you are getting fit to work with the government or still you require some time. है ना? That's how you need to understand it. In terms of approach, linking administration, we have discussed a lot of things. Ethics in public administration, integrity का role क्या है, accountability का role क्या है, impartiality, because sometimes you might become impartial also. So ethics दिखाती है कि in whenever you managing public, you need to be of people of good integrity. You should take the accountability of things which you are doing. Then you need to be impartial in the governance process, right? Decision making में क्या आएगा? Applications of emotional intelligence, objectivity and transparency. In terms of values, we have reading the values of honesty, dedication, empathy. Is empathy? What is sympathy? Sympathy क्या है? What is sympathy? Feeling bad. What is empathy? Trying to help me, getting into shoes and understand what he or she pain is going through. That is what you call an empathy. है ना? So government servants needs to be empathetic. तब आप एक अच्छे policy makers बन पाओगे. then you can be more citizen centric, because you are not sympathizing, you are understanding what that citizen is facing as a problem, right? That is why it is required. Tolerance, maybe many conditions you would be charged with a lot of judgments, है ना, तो आपको tolerant भी बनने की जरूरत है. Public service motivation, you should always motivated to work towards the country, right? Laws, regulations, again RTI, anti-corruption laws, Whistleblower Protection Act, again this is all in terms of governance. Public service में challenges क्या आएंगे? Bureaucratic inefficiency, conflict of interest, ethical dilemmas in policy execution, case studies and ethical dilemmas, examples from governance, corporate ethics, international relations to evaluate ethical decision making skills, right? Lastly, questions कैसे आए हैं? Significance of ethics in public administration, basic moral thinkers, हम पढ़ेंगे बहुत सारे thinkers के बारे में, that is in administration. एक केस स्टडी में you are a district magistrate, देखो क्या बोलते हैं आपको, आप एग्जामिनेशन बने नहीं हो, आपको बोल दे रहे हैं कि you get that spot, you become a district magistrate and then handle a situation. तो तभी आता है सब सारे सिलेबस का लिंकेज कि हम क्यों पढ़ रहे हैं. यूपीएससी में बोल रहा है ना कि हम आपको whatever thing have been mentioned in syllabus, it is something which you are going to do once you get into administration. That's why the last paper talks about case studies here. You become a DM and find out the major contractor is using a substandard, again basic question, है ना. That's where the utility of reading everything comes into a crux here, right? Then ethical concepts को पढ़ना है, thinkers को पढ़ने हैं, role of civil services in democracy, what we have discussed already. Emotional intelligence, managing, because you will be in situation managing stress, conflicts resolution, ethical dilemmas. आपसे पूछेंगे, you are going to become a civil servant. A civil servant, an IAS officer works 24/7. Now there is a recent debate of 90 hour per week working, है ना. How do you go by this? आप बोलोगे sir, it is not, where work-life balance has to be maintained. Now they will ask you a question. How will you maintain your work-life balance? But again, you will be in a position of maybe serving your district. Maybe there is no time limit, है ना. तो ये आपको questions ऐसे basic dilemma वाले पूछेंगे, and that to check your personality, that how you are reacting to those, right? Then emotional intelligence, leadership qualities, case studies, and again governance relation. That's how you need to do this. So basically, after this, what I am trying to say is, whenever you are reading, before reading the for preparing for examination, you need to understand that syllabus is the core, and the approach which we do while reading the syllabus is very important. That will make us maybe more what we call as interested in reading subjects, and that can also make me maybe feeling bored towards reading subject, because I have to understand that whatever syllabus which UPSC is going to do is something I am going to do that once I get into administrations. So ये आपका linkage आपको बैठाना बहुत ज़रूरी है. So if you have that linkage, we have tried to cover a lot of those in the session, right? So you have an understanding that why we are reading the syllabus, why we are reading different subjects, and how important it is in terms of governance, right? So now your task will be कि once you go home, please take a printout of this syllabus, please paste it in front of your study tables. It should not be memorized by its own way, in a literal way, by reading it multiple times. Whenever you read any topic, please figure out which part of syllabus it is, which subtopic of syllabus it is. If you're reading any current event, any current news, try and interlink it which part of syllabus. Multiple news can be linked to multiple parts of syllabus, we have discussed, right? But अब आप लिखते हो जब mains answer writing में, how maybe this event comes into picture, you write a very plain answer, and you write an answer where again you have current knowledge also, है ना. That would of course give you more marks, है ना. So please understand कि syllabus mapping helps us in 2 or 3 ways. Once, that prelims is not to be read by its own. Prelims का guiding factor is the mains का syllabus, number 1. Number 2, current events, the boundary of what I should be reading in current affairs is a boundary which is defined by the syllabus of examination. A common man is also reading newspaper. You are also reading newspaper. You are reading newspaper for clearing the examination. So your idea and utility should be clear, है ना. So syllabus mapping is very good. Then after, maybe there again you can start with maybe linking it with current affairs, reading current, maybe your basic NCERT in the standard books. That is how you should go upon, right? That's how we end the session here today. I hope you have a clarity on the syllabus of examination. Please use it very wisely, and this is the core of your syllabus, right? Core of your preparation journey, which will define whether you're going to become Of course, you all will become civil servant, but how good civil servant will become, how your personality will be shaped, है ना? Because एक होता हम plain reading करते हैं, एक हम पढ़ाई करते हैं, it's terms of understanding and utility. So many a times people tell कि if you have prepared once for the examinations, your personality will stand out. How you are going to stand out if you have a understanding, है ना? So make your personality and don't prepare in syllabus, as in I'm preparing only for prelims, I'm preparing only for mains, and now I'm preparing only for interview. It has to be integrated, and the approach we have discussed today, right? So all the very best. Thank you so much. Have a good night.